When Seong Yangho first entered the White Snow Phantom Corps, there was one rule that was emphasized above all else. Follow the rules. If you broke them, you would face immediate punishment. And if that happened, you wouldn't be allowed to die easily. That was drilled into both eyes and soul. And the man who had driven that point home was the small, wiry man standing over there with his arms crossed. That man was Jucky, the leader of the White Snow Phantom Corps. His cultivation level was at the second stage of the 5 divine martial realms, the limitless profound body. One of the top masters of everlasting snow palace. "You're slow," the sharp remark snapped Seong Yangho out of his daze. He immediately kicked off the ground and shot forward, stopping right in front of Jucky. Dropping to one knee, he bowed his head. "I greet the captain." Jucky looked down at him with a dispassionate gaze and said, "One NOVELIGHT degrees thing. Do you have a death wish?" "Of course not." "Then why are you acting like a man begging to be killed?" Seong Yangho swallowed dryly. "I heard you shouted quite proudly at the Hanbing sect." Jucky's tone was calm but cutting. "I am Seong Yangho of the White Snow Phantom Corps. If anyone dares interfere, I will sever their heads." "Was that it? How did it feel?" "Well, it didn't feel bad." "It didn't feel bad? Then you won't mind getting beaten to death right here, will you?" "That I wouldn't like very much." Jucky let out a long, heavy sigh and crouched down in front of Seong Yangho. "Yangho, yes, Captain. There is an order to everything. I understand. Have I ever said a word when you acted like a little smartass? You did beat the crap out of me, though. That was because you deserved it. I've been leading the White Snow Phantom Corps for 40 years now, and you're the first punk like you I've ever met." Seong Yangho's face lost all color. His words had a chilling weight to them. "Why are you talking like you're about to kill me? What, did you actually do all that because you want to live? Sir, I'd very much like to live. And yet, the guy who wants to live is breaking rules left and right. ... Come on, sir. It's not like I wanted to break the rules. You know this, I've always had a soft spot for you. ... Couldn't tell." Whack, Jucky slapped Seong Yangho upside the head, letting out a deep sigh. This was the real Seong Yangho, the one that people didn't know, a smartass who had taken sarcasm to a divine level. From the moment he entered the White Snow Phantom Corps, he was nothing but trouble. But his talent was undeniable, and his abilities were exceptional. Despite being stuck at the Spirit Ascension stage, if he had joined a combat unit like the White Phantom Guards instead of the White Snow Phantom Corps, he would have likely reached the Celestial Mortal stage by now. "That hurt. It was supposed to. Are you really going to kill me? I don't want to, but you know the rules exist for a reason. There's got to be a way to work around this, right?" "There are a few ways. Want to hear one of them?" "Yes, please. If I cut off your limbs and crush your danchin, everyone would be satisfied. ... Captain, speak. If I run away right now, would you chase me down? You wouldn't get more than 2 steps. I'd cut off both your legs. Let's talk this out, okay? Aren't we talking right now? How is this talking? It's more like you're giving me a chance to say my last words. Same difference. Just let it slide this once, Captain." At that, Jucky let out a short, dry laugh. "Do you know why I liked you? I didn't even know you liked me until now." Jucky nearly raised his hand to slap him again, but decided against it. He let out another sigh and said, "You haven't once used Hyun Seolan's name to save yourself. If you invoked his name, you could get away with this. I could even pretend not to notice. Really, if I don't let it slide, I'd be breaking the rules of Everlasting Snow Palace myself. So what would you do?" Seong Yangho scratched his head. "Despite how much you act like a punk, you're actually more serious when it comes to work. Especially when you're focused, your senses are sharp enough to even impress me." Normally, that kind of praise would have made anyone feel good, but it only made Seong Yangho feel worse. "One way you could survive this is to invoke Hyun Seolan's name. Sir, you know as well as I do, the young master has nothing to do with this." "Nothing to do with it?" "Obviously. You know how much I cursed and swore when I was first assigned as his butler." "I remember. It was the first time you ever mouthed off to me." "He did, and he spent the next month bedridden after getting his ass kicked. I originally wanted to join a combat unit like the White Phantom Guards. It was my dream. But when those Hanbing sect bastards started strutting around, I just couldn't take it anymore." "So, it was all your decision," Seong Yangho chuckled. "Of course, it was my decision. I even sent a secret message to the young master, telling him to just use the name of the White Snow Phantom Corps." To Jucky's surprise, Seong Yangho's confession actually seemed to please him. "You've finally developed some resolve." "Me? You were nothing but a bundle of complaints before. I remember the look on your face when you were first assigned to be Hyun Seolan's butler, so disappointed, so crushed. But now you finally understand the world, responsibility, and even your own heart. Why are you saying all this now? If I keep pushing you, you'll eventually invoke Hyun Seolan's name. And if that happens, I'll be deeply disappointed. You'll no longer be the Seong Yangho I admired, so to let you stay in my good memories, I'll send you off right here. Where are you sending me? To the river of three crossings. ... Can you delay it by, say, 30 years? You're quite the comedian now. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. Jucky raised his hand, his fingers twitching. That's quite the fondness you have for our Seong Yangho. A new voice cut through the tension. At the sudden voice, Seong Yangho's head snapped up, and Jucky quietly rose to his feet, turning toward the source. It was Seol Unwai. A pleasure to meet you for the first time. I am Jucky, leader of the White Snow Phantom Corps. Hyun Seolan, Seol Unwai. And what, may I ask, was the meaning behind your words just now? What else could it be? You were trying to tell me exactly what kind of man Seong Yangho is and what kind of mindset he has. Jucky smiled wordlessly. You intentionally sent your presence to me while controlling it so that Seong Yangho wouldn't notice. Am I wrong? There were rumors spreading throughout Everlasting Snow Palace recently that you'd changed. Seeing you now, I see they were true. Unwai calmly approached Jucky. Jucky, what kind of man was he? He was similar to Hyunchim. A man who was loyal to Seol Yungchin. A man who owed Seol Yungchin his life twice in the distant past. He was paying back those two debts by remaining by Seol Yungchin's side, handling everything that happened behind the scenes in Everlasting Snow Palace. He was the core of the core. Unwai spoke in a calm, measured voice. In a way, it's comforting. How so? Knowing that there's someone who values and holds Seong Yangho in such high regard only reaffirms my own judgment. How could that not be comforting? Oh, and one more thing. Yes, I revealed it on purpose. Did you now? Yes, I intentionally announced that Seong Yangho was part of the White Snow Phantom Corps to use him as my man. Jucky seemed to have a question and asked immediately. How did you know Seong Yangho was a member of the White Snow Phantom Corps? Did he reveal it to you first, or? Seong Yangho's gait is quite unique. Unwai cut him off mid-sentence, but Jucky didn't feel annoyed. If anything, he was more intrigued, so he kept his mouth shut and continued to listen. He doesn't leave a single footprint behind, yet his center of gravity doesn't waver in the slightest. Moreover, when he lifts his heel, his energy gathers in the center of his foot, and when he steps down, that energy disperses instantly, erasing any trace. Jucky's expression grew odd. Was this really that Seol Unwai? Of course, it wasn't on the level of a spirit ascension stage martial artist using their full power. But as you know well, Captain, a person's habits tend to surface when they're not conscious of them. The hidden step art of the White Snow Phantom Corps, that's how I noticed. That's too far-fetched. It's the same for you, Captain. Jucky's eyebrows twitched. Whether it's a master of the earthly specter stage or the limitless profound body, there is one thing that can never be completely hidden no matter how much they suppress their aura. Unwai paused, his gaze scanning Jucky's upper body. Your right shoulder is about half a kai lower than your left. You must have sustained a severe injury a long time ago. Jucky's face hardened. Exactly 35 years ago. At the peak of the everlasting snow mountain, during a training session with Seol Yungchin, Jucky had unleashed all his strength, and Seol Yungchin had blocked it. That was when it happened. Jucky's power was greater than expected, so Seol Yungchin not only blocked it but also dispersed it. Already exhausted, Jucky had been sent flying and crashed into a cliff. In that state, with all his internal energy depleted, the cliff crumbled, and he was swept away. Seol Yungchin had saved him, but at that time, Jucky had almost lost his shoulder. That was the scar that still lingered on his shoulder. It had healed completely, of course, but psychological scars were not so easily erased. That incident remained a profound and pivotal moment in Jucky's life. He had nearly lost his life due to his own arrogance, but Seol Yungchin had saved him. Unconsciously, Jucky ran a hand over his shoulder. It was a symbol of the bond he had forged with Seol Yungchin. And more importantly, no one knew about it except Seol Yungchin. Did the palace master tell you this? Of course not, and just now when you were reprimanding Seong Yangho, a faint smile appeared on Unwai's lips. The stance you took. It was based on the White Snow Traceless Step, the foundational technique created by the original founder of the White Snow Phantom Corps, the late Han A.M. With every step, your energy swirls like a vortex, erasing all traces. Unwai paused for a moment, then continued. But in between, I could see the distinct characteristics of Chungungak. The flowing cloud mist step of Chungungak, where you lift your foot as lightly as a cloud and set it down as softly as mist. Especially that slight pause before you step down. Unwai trailed off as if searching for the right word. Then he resumed, his voice slow and deliberate. It's a perfect harmony. The swirling energy of the white snow traceless step and the gentle flow of the flowing cloud mist step have become one. You move across the snow without leaving a single trace, yet you glide as naturally as a drifting cloud. At this point, there was nothing left to be surprised by. Jucky, who had known Seong Yangho for decades, was staring at Unwai with a look of bewilderment as if he were seeing him for the first time. He looked completely dumbfounded, and honestly, it wasn't a bad look on him. Silence fell. Jucky slowly ran a hand over his face. Can you tell me the source of your information? The source is my knowledge and my insight. If you can deduce the flowing cloud mist step of Chungungak with just that, then you must be a peerless master. Then I suppose I'm that peerless master. Are you truly saying you didn't hear it from somewhere else? Yes. As a martial artist, I ask you, is that really the truth? Unwai took a step forward and spoke firmly. As a martial artist and as a man, I say to you, no, I did not. Then how is such a thing possible? You're still at the Lotus Heart stage. Are you trying to strip me down to the last scrap of my secrets? Jucky let out a hollow laugh. After a moment of silent contemplation, he spoke in a low voice. I feel a little more at ease. Jucky's expression softened significantly, but in the next instant, Unwise words made him degrees NOVELIGHT degrees flinch. Are you really at ease? Yes, I am, Unwise smiled. That's a relief. The awkward tension in the air dissipated in an instant. Unwai had no intention of prolonging the conversation, and Jucky seemed to feel the same. I didn't know that we had a genius within everlasting Snow Palace. For a brief moment, Unwai considered saying, I'm not a genius, but ultimately decided not to. The internal matters of the White Snow Phantom Core are mine to handle. I'll leave Seong Yangho in your care from now on. Jucky clasped his fists respectfully, and Unwai mirrored the gesture. Jucky then glanced at Seong Yangho without a word, let out a slight chuckle and turned away. After Jucky's departure, Seong Yangho approached Unwai with a grin. I knew it, I really did. Seong Yangho. Yes, young master, it's time to go back. Seong Yangho's grin widened. Then, as if a thought suddenly occurred to him, he asked, how did it go, the business you had? It went well. It had really gone well. I also gained something significant. A gain? My father is truly extraordinary, Seong Yangho laughed. Of course he is. He's the supreme ruler of everlasting Snow Palace. Extraordinary. The word slipped out without him realizing. Alone in his office, Seong Yangho sat quietly, drawing in his internal energy. His eyes turned a ghostly white, and everything within his office instantly froze over. Then, with a slight chuckle, he retracted his power. He had released it without thinking, and now the office was in ruins. But it didn't matter. He really didn't care. 5 hours. He had spent 5 hours talking with Unwai. And in those 5 hours, the power of everlasting Snow Palace had grown immeasurably stronger. Blood domain imprisonment. It was undeniably a secret martial art of the Central Blood Sect. In this world, no one else had created anything remotely similar. It was not something that could be easily observed and replicated. A technique of that caliber was an intricate web, woven with advanced martial arts at a profound level. If you altered one aspect, it would cause disruptions elsewhere, and those disruptions would spread like a virus throughout the entire structure. Trying to modify something so interconnected, that was far more difficult than creating a brand new martial art. Unwai had accomplished that. Though he had claimed to have worked together with Seong Yangho, in reality, Seong Yangho had only handled the superficial aspects. Unwai had addressed every crucial core. A genius who sees another genius. In Seong Yangcho's eyes, Unwai was already a genius. And yet this genius had referred to the heavenly Taoist, the blood sect's master, as a genius. Currently, Seong Yangho was hailed as the Ice Celestial Supreme within the northern regions. But once he set foot in the Central Plains, the title Supreme would lose its weight. The true Supreme of Murim was the heavenly Taoist. I have to work harder. He had been standing on the brink of the last stage of the 5 divine martial realms, absolute oneness, for more than 10 years. To surpass that final step, he had clung to the legend of everlasting Snow Palace. Now that he had grasped the essence of that legend, it was time to let go. Unwai had said, let's search for everlasting Snow Palace's legend together later. He intended to do just that. And by letting go, he could finally see the things he had been missing. More than anything, no matter how much Unwai claimed he would protect everlasting Snow Palace, the current palace master was still Seol Yangho. As a father and as the palace master, it was Seol Yangho's duty to protect everlasting Snow Palace. How could he throw that weight onto his son's shoulders? "Vice Palace Master, are you there?" As if waiting for the call, a voice answered from outside. "Yes, I am here, Palace Master." A single door separated the two men as they began their conversation. Seol Yangho spoke. "Summon all the polar successors except for Unwai." "Understood." And Seol Yangho had been about to hand the letter meant for the Silent Soul sect to Yang Seoljan, but he immediately changed his mind. "Call for Hyunchim." "Understood, Palace Master." Vice Palace Master Yang Seoljan turned to leave. His eyes were cold. Seol Yangho's gaze, directed at the closed door, was equally icy. Yang Seoljan, what kind of man was he? Or rather, what did Seol Yangho truly think of Yang Seoljan? Seol Yangho had always considered him a savage man who nonetheless had the heart of a martial artist. Yang Seoljan's talent was undeniable. If he weren't exceptionally talented, he would have never reached the limitless, profound body. But where were those eyes looking now? What was his true objective? Come to think of it, Seol Yangho had never asked such questions in detail. He had simply assumed Yang Seoljan was acting out of obligation to repay a debt. Unwise words were correct. The first step to solving a problem was to recognize that a problem existed. Seol Yangho began to doubt Yang Seoljan. For a long time, Seol Yangho remained there, deep in thought. Naturally, the destination was Yangryong. There was no need to consider any other place. On the way, we made a brief stop at a location near the palace where a pack of wild dogs roamed. I tossed the wailing Cho Sehui to them and watched as he was torn apart. Only after ensuring that he was completely devoured did the carriage resume its journey, without stopping. Inside the carriage, I stared blankly at the confession in my hand. I read through it over and over again. Everything that needed to be included was there. How Jin Yangj manipulated the four great sects, how he pressured the snow compression branch, and how he funneled money into secret operations. If I matched it with the ledger we had obtained, this was quite the masterpiece. This was both our justification and our bargaining chip. Depending on how I decided to use it, Hanbing sect could either be wiped out today or spared. No matter how many times I read through it, the content was perfect. I couldn't help but be impressed by Han Murin, who had put this all together. As expected of someone from the Palace of Demon Flames of Chaos. Did you see his eyes when he was torturing that guy? The kid was talking all politely, but his eyes. You know, the kind of eyes a killer would have. He was smiling while torturing him. I let out a small laugh. That's someone who knows what's important when it comes to torture. If the torturer shows signs of impatience, then the victim might feel physical pain, but they'll still delude themselves into thinking they're in control. Han Murin must have seen it firsthand. Seong Yangho scratched his head awkwardly. "Well, whatever you do, young master, you know I'm always on your side, right?" "Of course I do." "But then, why did the carriage stop?" Seong Yangho immediately lifted the barrier that concealed our presence, his brow furrowing deeply. "Looks like we have a guest." Indeed, we did. The carriage door swung open and a familiar woman poked her head in. "Little brother, where are you going?" It was Seol Yonhwa, the third of the polar successors, also known as Ice Snow Spirit. "My sister." Seong Yangho's expression instantly turned blank, and Han Murin, who had been driving the carriage, quietly got down with the same impassive expression as always. I spoke to my sister. "I'm headed to Yangryong." "Oh, is that so? Father summoned all the polar successors, but the way you're coming from seems a bit odd. Were you by any chance coming from the palace?" "Yes." "That's surprising. More importantly, little brother." I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could say anything, my sister's hand shot forward and grabbed me by the collar. "I heard you devoured Yangryong Prefecture." I looked down at her hand, gripping my collar. "I heard you slaughtered the four great sects, killed everyone. Is it true?" "Yes, it's true. And you settled things with the Lord of Jinganseong." "Yes." "Are you really my little brother?" "Yes, I am." "I'm asking because it doesn't feel like it." I smiled faintly. "Sister, yeah, go ahead. I am Hyun Seol Seol Unwai." "Oh, that's a relief." Her smile deepened. "You say it's a relief, but you're not letting go of my collar." "Yeah. There's something I need to confirm first. If it's a question I can answer, I will. You put on quite a show back there in the assembly hall. You knew so much. How was that possible?" "Well, you knew about Viper Valley. You knew about the Central Blood Sect. Little brother, you know what I'm getting at, right? You'd have to be a fool not to understand after all that. I didn't think you'd actually get it. And then my body flew through the air. My sister yanked me by the collar and threw me out of the carriage. I spun once in midair before landing on the ground. You said you'd answer any question you could, right? Yes. Then I'll ask. Little brother, did you join hands with the Central Blood Sect? While loosening my neck muscles, I asked, Is that all? That's it. I don't think so. I know you. I stared at my sister in silence. The little brother I know would never betray Everlasting Snow Palace. The Central Blood Sect might have contacted you, but you pretended to cooperate with them to extract information, right? Isn't that it? My sister. The sister I knew. Even in the worst-case scenario, she wasn't suspecting me. Even if I had joined hands with the Central Blood Sect, she believed it was only a ruse to gather information for us. I couldn't help but smile at that. Why are you smiling? Because I don't feel bad about it. Little brother, you've really changed. Without hesitation, my sister drew the sword from her waist. I don't usually like hitting my little brother, but I guess I have to make an exception today. How about having a heated conversation with your big sister? There was no point in answering, because she was already charging toward me. The ground caved in under her foot as she closed the gap between us in an instant. Her sword, imbued with the essence of ice and snow, slashed down from above. It was one of the 6 sword techniques recorded in the complete compendium of Everlasting Snow. I read the sword movement and predicted the next one. There were 2 possible directions. The direction her foot was angled and the shoulder muscle that tensed more. And then the direction her foot moved next. The calculations completed in my head, I twisted my body to the side. The sword sliced through the air, narrowly missing me. Immediately, I took a step back, then a step to the right. Her blade, which had been suspended midair, now slashed down in a sweeping arc, grazing past my forehead. A simple sword technique, and the follow-up was easy to predict. I stepped left just as the tip of her sword swept past my right ear. What the hell? My sister's sword stopped moving. In her widened eyes, a clear reflection of my right hand could be seen, holding her sword firmly in place. Little brother, just what exactly are you? I relaxed my grip and lowered the sword. Sister, an illusionary sword dazzles the eyes, but a real sword is calm. Your sword is calm, but it's far too dazzling. Is that a compliment? About half of it is a compliment, considering it hasn't been long since you reached the 5 banners form. It's clear that your future is incredibly bright. She lowered her sword as well. Her expression revealed that she was struggling to comprehend this surreal situation. I decided that I needed to clarify things a bit more. Whether I've joined hands with the Central Blood Sect, or whether I'm deceiving them and acting as a double agent. Honestly, I don't think that matters much to either NOVELIGHT of us. I've told Father, I said I would protect Everlasting Snow Palace. I reached out and gently brushed my sister's shoulder. There are 4 people who must be present in the Everlasting Snow Palace that I intend to protect. And who are those 4? The first is Father, the second is our eldest brother, the third is our second brother. And the 4th? Who else could it be? It's you. Of course, my sister's eyes began to tremble slightly. There is only one reason Father called upon the polar successors. I'm about to show you that reason now. I took a step back and drew upon my inner strength. In an instant, everything I saw was enveloped in pure white. And then, KABOO. As the deafening roar echoed, my sister fell backward in shock. The chief steward Seong Yangho, who had been nervously biting his nails from afar, jumped to his feet. And Han Murin, standing beside him, staggered as though his legs had given out. Well, of course they would react like that. This was a technique I created with Father. The heavenly snow dominion, ko chunsa dise, /Chinsial jais, surrounding my sister and me in a radius of about 5 kai approx, 15 cm. Thousands upon thousands of ice crystals had formed. These were the ambient energies of nature that had previously been invisible to the naked eye. What many martial artists could only sense as the faintest traces of heaven and earth's energy had now materialized in physical form. Blue, red, gold, all kinds of shimmering energies had crystallized into ice, glittering like tiny stars. My sister stared at the sight in awe and murmured softly. Even the sword she was holding had frozen solid, rendered utterly useless. It's beautiful. A smile spread across my lips. This is my answer. I waved my hand and the ice crystals scattered. My eyes, which had turned a chilling white, reverted to their original state. Little brother, what was that? It's the technique that Father plans to teach you and our brothers. That? Yes, the heavenly snow dominion, currently. I am still too weak to control a range beyond 5 to 6 kai, approx. 15 minutes 18 cm. But as someone who's mastered the 5 banners form, you should be able to dominate entire spans measured in chiak approx, 30 cm per chiak. When you say dominate, are you talking about what I think you are? Yes, precisely. You can kill, you can wound. And when your realm far surpasses your opponent's, or if they can't react in time, you will hold absolute dominance. Where the blood domain imprisonment created by the heavenly Taoist tore space apart with killing intent, the heavenly snow dominion controlled space with the pure essence of ice and snow. It was infinitely more versatile. The martial arts contained within the complete compendium of everlasting snow were fully embodied in this technique, and my sister, whose eyes had yet to leave the sparkling ice crystals, grasped its value in an instant. Now she was wearing an expression I had never seen before. Shock, and more than that, awe, bewilderment, and a sense of the boundless potential that this martial art could bring. It was a little embarrassing to say, but she looked like a complete fool. It feels like a technique far beyond my understanding. You can comprehend it. Why? Because you're my sister. Oh, I dropped to one knee and looked up at her. Just as you believe in me, I believe in you too, sister. You know you're really strange, right? I won't deny that I'm a bit different from the me you remember, but there is one more thing that has changed. It's your gaze, but I am still your youngest brother. Seong Yangho, the one who cherishes and thinks of you. But how do I even begin to understand this? You have to understand it, and I haven't forgotten the love and care you have shown me not just in childhood, but even up until recently. Seong Yangho scratched her head awkwardly. Well, that's only natural as your sister. I reached out and gently smoothed her disheveled hair. I have a favor to ask. From me? Yes, what is it? You regularly visit the Martial Alliance. Right, yeah, it's a gathering for the younger generation. Who else would go from the palace? It's not like our eldest brother, that bastard. Or he would go. You're right, and you mentioned that the young lord of the Tyrant Blade sect has been hitting on you, didn't you? Yeah, you know how it is. Your sister's got a pretty face. After all, I stood up. She did too. I spoke quietly. I think it's best if you keep your distance from the young lord of the Tyrant Blade sect. Something's going on. Isn't there? The rumors aren't good. I had mentioned it briefly before, but my sister would die about a year from now. Cause of death, assassination. There were 5 culprits, but only 3 were ever caught. One of the 2 who got away was the young lord of the Tyrant Blade sect. I had annihilated the Tyrant Blade sect, slaughtered its entire lineage, and dragged him to a cave located in a remote corner of the Central Blood sect. I kept him alive there for over a decade. That was when I perfected the 10,000 agonies art. You're worried about me? Yes, thank you, she smiled faintly. It's only natural for me to do as your little brother. Now, has your suspicion been cleared? I never really suspected you. I was just worried. I understand. Then, sister, I will take my leave now. As I began walking toward the carriage, my sister called out to me, Is there anything I can help you with? I turned to look at her. Not help, but I do have one request. What is it? You'll be going to the Martial Alliance soon, right? Before you go. Could you stop by Yangyong for a moment? Why? I have something to give you. Seong Yangho tilted her head, puzzled. A gift? Yes, it's going to be interesting. All right, see you then. As I resumed walking, I spoke to the still-stunned Seong Yangho and Han Murin. Let's move. This. Do you see this? Look at these goosebumps. Just what exactly did I just witness? What do you think it was? I chuckled and continued. It was the future of everlasting Snow Palace. The blood domain imprisonment of the Central Blood sect is a technique that symbolizes the sect itself. It's a technique so infamous that even someone like Li Jicheng, a mere martial artist of the 3 flowers gathering essence stage, could recognize it instantly. In Everlasting Snow Palace, there was no such definitive technique. Only ice was well known, but from now on, the Heavenly Snow Dominion would become the iconic martial art representing Everlasting Snow Palace. 10 days later, the letter personally penned by the Ice Sovereign Seong Yangho arrived at the Silent Soul sect. Everlasting Snow Palace is located in what is considered the outer regions of the Central Plains. Similarly, the Silent Soul sect also operates in the outer regions. The specific area is called the Great Desert. The top-tier messenger hawk had flown through the skies, and for it to have taken 10 days was perfectly reasonable. After receiving Seong Yangho's letter, the sect master of the Silent Soul sect, Yun Unseeing, skimmed the first page and burst into laughter. Our Grand Ice Sovereign of Everlasting Snow Palace is playing some rather unfitting pranks. Mayo Rim, the deputy sect master standing beside him, asked, What do you mean? This man claims to know about the Heavenly Soul Annihilation art. Mayo Rim's brows knitted tightly. You mean the lost heavenly soul annihilation art of the Silent Soul sect? Yun Unseeing nodded. The heavenly soul annihilation art. A martial art that evaporates the surrounding heaven and earth energy within a designated range. Its efficacy was so devastating that it was practically classified as demonic martial arts. Its power was undeniable. But the reason it was classified as demonic was due to the severe life force it consumed each time it was used. The technique was lost during the Great Chaos 1,000 years ago and had only been passed down orally since then. And Everlasting Snow Palace, of all places, knows about it. That damn fool has really gone mad up in the snowy mountains. The more he thought about it, the more ridiculous it seemed. What kind of joke is this? First, he says he wants to buy the 100-year flower, and now he's trying to backstab me. Sect master? What? Mayo Rim scratched his head awkwardly. There's more on the back. Yun Unseeing's brow furrowed. He had been so thrown off by the absurdity of the content that he hadn't even checked the back. The moment he flipped the letter over, his eyes widened dramatically. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Chinhan Hwajingya. Shinmyong Jinsasen. The soul of heaven becomes an eternal night, and all divine spirits are extinguished. Chinese letter, 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 Chinese letter. Ilyom Danmanyon. Yongs Bulbuin with a single thought, 10,000 fates are severed, never to return. There was no way not to be shocked. This formula, these words, vile beyond description and without a doubt. It was the exact incantation of the heavenly soul annihilation art that had only ever been passed down orally. This can't be real. Unable to believe it, he read it again. While the latter half was somewhat incomplete. It was unmistakable. This was real. His hands began to tremble. This, what? What is this? There had been no news that the heavenly soul annihilation art had reappeared in a hidden realm, and yet here it was. And Seong Yangho of Everlasting Snow Palace knew about it. Wow, that sly old fox. It was absurd. There was only one possible scenario. A hidden realm had appeared near Everlasting Snow Palace. Apparently, our Grand Ice Sovereign had looted a hidden realm that contained the Silent Soul Sect's treasure. There was no choice now. Seong Yangho wanted the 100-year flower, and Yun Unseeing wanted the heavenly soul annihilation art. Prepare to move. What do you mean? We're going to Everlasting Snow Palace. Ah, it seems the Ice Sovereign wants the 100-year flower delivered to him personally. We can't refuse. And thus, on that day, Yun Unseeing, the sect master of the Silent Soul Sect, set out for Everlasting Snow Palace. The estimated arrival date was in about 10 days. Even if unforeseen circumstances arose, it wouldn't take more than 2 weeks. During those 10 days, a lot had changed in Yangyong. The former government building had been completely transformed into the Everlasting Snow Palace's Yangyong branch, while the area once occupied by the 4 great sects was under heavy construction. Mining operations at Chungnung Mine and Sealhin Mine for cold jade essence had intensified, far exceeding previous output levels. Yangyong was now more populated than it had ever been under the 4 great sects' control. It wasn't because Yangyong had become a more livable place. It was because the martial artists of the Central Plains interpreted the current state of Yangyong, now fully under Seong Yangho's control, differently. The incident where Seong Yangho had swallowed up Yangyong whole was certainly spearheaded by him. However, as the saying goes, don't believe it until you see it. The martial artists were full of doubt. Was Seong Yangho really the one pulling the strings? Did he really accomplish it all on his own? There's no way that's true. It would be stranger to think that Everlasting Snow Palace had not been involved in the matter where the Yang Empire withdrew and the 4 great sects in Yangyong were annihilated in a single day. People speculated. The current situation, where Yangyong had become territory of Everlasting Snow Palace, meant that the palace was no longer content with being a power solely in the outer regions. They were beginning to extend their influence into the Central Plains. Whether it was true or not, the end result remained the same. That was why people were flocking to Yangyong. Now, Yangyong was the closest point of Everlasting Snow Palace's territory to the Central Plains. All sorts of people were gathering, and that was why Unwai was currently in the command hall of the Yangyong branch, dealing with this situation. What did you say your name was? I am Munam. And your affiliation? I'm with the Samgok Merchants Alliance. Samgok Merchants Alliance. What kind of place was it? I had mentioned it briefly before. There are 3 regions near Yangyong that one must be particularly cautious of: Chang'an, Bongri, and Saryang. Between these 3 regions lies a place called Shinsum Valley. Shinsum Valley is the largest cultivation area for Shinsum flower, and those three regions monopolize it. But naturally, where there are lucrative resources, there is conflict. To mediate the disputes between these three regions, a central organization was formed. That is the Samgak Merchants Alliance. They serve as a joint management organization established by those three regions. I Am Munam was the chief arbitrator of that alliance. To be honest, Unwai hadn't anticipated the appearance of the Samgak Merchants Alliance. He had Shinsum Valley in the back of his mind, but he had thought it was still too early to make a move. Yet here they were, walking right into his hands. Why had they come? Why had an arbitrator traveled all the way to Yangho? That was the question. What's the reason you're here to see me? I Am Munam looked at Unwai, then at Seong Yangho standing behind him, and finally at Chenpeng and Wanyang, who stood on either side of the command hall with their hands resting on their sword hilts. Then, he opened his mouth. Since everyone present here seems to be people you trust, I'll get straight to the point. Without waiting for Unwai's nod, I Am Munam continued. We're extremely concerned. About what? About what would happen if Everlasting Snow Palace were to get involved in Shinsum Valley. Unwai's lips curled into a faint smile as though he understood. The moniker Snow Mountain Demon Lord certainly had its uses. The incident of Unwai seizing control of Yangho in just one day had clearly left a strong impression. To put it bluntly, if Everlasting Snow Palace decides to interfere, not only would the Samgak Merchants Alliance, but also the three regions that founded it would do whatever it takes to prevent that. We could involve the Martial Alliance, or even the Sichuan Alliance. There are plenty of options. I Am Munam paused for a moment and Unwai spoke calmly. Keep going. Yes, I will, during the process. We would inevitably lose to the massive force that is Everlasting Snow Palace. A loss, huh? You were talking as if you intended to fight, but now you're praising us. It's not praise, it's just the truth. We don't even dare to guess the limits of Everlasting Snow Palace, but if they were to make a move, we have no doubt that 3 or 4 cities would be reduced to ashes in an instant. You said you'd get straight to the point, but you sure are talking a lot. Apologies, let me be clear. We don't want Everlasting Snow Palace to get involved in the competition in Shinsum Valley. This wasn't bad. This wasn't a threat. It was a proposal, to be precise. It was the groundwork laid before making a proper offer. Unwai crossed one leg over the other and rested his chin on his hand. If it's a deal you're proposing, it's about time you tell me what you're offering. I see. I heard that the ruler of Yangho has hidden his sword for 6 years. You certainly live up to the rumors. Very well, I will tell you. The Samgak Merchants Alliance, representing the 3 regions, is willing to provide Hyun Seolan of Yangho with 600 June of Shinsum flour per month. At that, Seong Yangho's brow twitched, and Wanyang, who knew the value of Shinsum flour, also flinched. The only one who remained expressionless was Chenpeng. He didn't even understand what the conversation was about. Unwai asked, how much Shinsum flour is produced monthly in Shinsum Valley? Approximately 3,000 June, about 18 kg, and the 3 regions have been splitting at 1,000 June each. That is correct. If you give 600 June to Yangho, each of the 3 regions will receive 800 June per month. That is also correct. The smile vanished from Unwai's face. I heard that Shinsum flour is divided into 3 grades, high, mid, and low. High-grade Shinsum flour is worth around 200 silver nyang per June. Mid-grade goes for 30 nyang, and low-grade sells for about 5 nyang. You're not wrong, based on the current market price. Raw numbers are meaningless. What matters is how much of that 600 June will be high-grade, how much will be mid-grade, and how much will be low-grade. Am I wrong? No, you're absolutely right. As the chief arbitrator of the Samgak Merchants Alliance, I assume you already have NOVELIGHT, a breakdown in mind. Before you tell me, let me state my terms. I'm listening. In regards to the cultivation of Shinsum flour, I won't interfere. Everlasting Snow Palace will not get involved, nor do we intend to cultivate it ourselves. The 600 June you've offered is a perfectly reasonable amount, and I don't plan to demand more, but the next part was critical. Of the 600 June, at least 150 June must be high-grade Shinsum flour. I Am Munam flinched. He had expected them to demand high-grade, but he had assumed Unwai's demand would be around 60 June. The proposed amount was more than double that. I Am Munam smiled. Your terms are clear and precise. Hyun Seolan, are you pleased with them? Yes, I am, except for one thing. I can guess what it is. If you can guess, then there's room for negotiation. Negotiation, huh? I am an arbitrator, I had a certain standard in mind, but the proposed amount is quite far from it. Unwai gestured for him to continue. 150 June of high-grade Shinsum flour is difficult, as you might guess. Shinsum Valley produces less than 400 June of high-grade Shinsum flour per month. On good months, it might reach 500 June, but on bad months, it can drop to 300 June. And, how about we meet somewhere closer to the middle? How much are you suggesting? 80 June, Unwai chuckled. 500 June on good months. 300 June on bad. 300 is likely the minimum, but 500 isn't the maximum, is it? That's correct. Then let's do it this way, whether it's a good month or a bad one. 100 June of high-grade Shinsum flour. I won't ask for more than that, but you must guarantee 100 June of high-grade Shinsum flour every month. That's the deal I'm offering. What do you think? After a moment of hesitation, Munam scratched his head, then clasped his hands together in a formal gesture. I will draft the contract and bring it to you within the day. Unfortunately, Unwai wasn't finished. But let me make one thing clear. If the 600 June includes 100 June of high grade and the remaining 500 June are all low grade, I swear on my life. Unwai's eyes darkened, his gaze icy. In that case, you, as well as the 3 regions, will regret this negotiation until the day you die. I understand. I will specify the quantity of mid-grade Shinsum flour as well in the contract, as expected of the chief arbitrator. Thank you. Go on. Then Munam was just about to turn around when Unwai spoke up. There's one thing I want to ask. Munam paused and glanced back. Have you ever played Go? The question visibly unsettled Munam. It was a simple question, nothing particularly alarming about it. Yet he appeared genuinely flustered. May I ask what you mean by that? Exactly what you're thinking. You still haven't answered my question. Have you ever played? There's no way I haven't. Unwai smiled faintly. Then, I suppose you're playing the Black Stones. Personally, I don't favor the advantage of the first move. Is that so? Yes, however, when it's necessary, I do play. Unwai and Munam locked eyes, the air thick with unspoken tension. Unexpectedly, it was Unwai who broke the silence. Your steps are quite peculiar. Are you referring to me? Yes, truly peculiar. Your footsteps remind me of a certain moment in the past. Are you by any chance interested in poetry? Munam smiled softly. I do have some interest. Unwai gazed at him and murmured quietly. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, gu mun si jiang ga with your mouth. You ask the market price. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, su dong chen yi jiom, but your hands know the swordsmanship of 1,000 years. Hearing the lines, Munam's eyes gleamed. It's the poem Sword and Commerce by Li Beak of the Moon Kingdom. Do you like it? I do. May I respond with a verse of my own? Unwai nodded, and Munam spoke in a calm, measured tone. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Sim sa chu su jiang, the heart is as still as autumn waters. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, and Jiang beak jian jin, but the eyes hide the dust of 100 battles. Unwai's eyes glimmered in response. That's the sword-hiding merchant by Bang Howell of the Sea Kingdom. Impressive, he's not exactly a well-known poet. Just as you are interested in poetry, so am I. Munam's eyes, now darker and more contemplative, fixed on Unwai. Do you still have something to say? No, nothing more. Then you've seen all you need to see, you may go. Munam seemed to hesitate for a moment as if he had more to say, but then simply smiled and exited the command hall. The moment the door closed behind him, Seong Yangho, who had been holding his breath, finally burst out in excitement. Wow! If 100 June of high-grade Shinsum flour is included in that 600 June, that's a minimum of 20,000 silver nyang every month, right? At the very least. Amazing! Seong Yangho was wearing an expression that clearly said, some people are just destined to be extraordinary. But Unwai was different. Something was off. Sending a mediator out of fear of everlasting Snow Palace's involvement, that much was understandable. But for them to suddenly appear like this, without everlasting Snow Palace even making a move yet, it means they've made a decision. Pardon? Seong Yangho. Can't you see it? I don't get it. They need the name of everlasting Snow Palace. What? Shinsum Valley is a place wedged between 4 regions, including Yangyo. Until now, they've monopolized it. As you said, 100 June of high-grade Shinsum flour is worth 20,000 silver nyang. If they weren't being pressured by someone else, it would actually be more suspicious that they're not being greedy about it. Then, what you're saying is, another force has already started exerting pressure on them over Shinsum Valley. I'd said it more than once. Widening the front line in the middle of a war with a particular faction was a suicidal move, and yet they had made their choice. By offering 600 June of Shinsum flour to Everlasting Snow Palace, they were essentially declaring, Everlasting Snow Palace has a stake in Shinsum Valley now. Anyone who wants a piece of it will have to go through them first. Only then did Chief Steward Seong seem to catch on. He muttered quietly, "Tricky. It is tricky. Whoever came up with this must have wrung every drop out of their brain to get here. Be it Everlasting Snow Palace or Yangyong, there's no downside for us." "That's true, but—" Seong paused. He looked at Unwai with an unreadable expression and continued, "Your expression is strange, like someone who's got something nagging at him. It's not like there's nothing bothering me. What is it, then? Don't you think it's strange? If you're talking about how Shinsum Valley suddenly approached us, then yes, it's a little odd. But it's not so strange that it's beyond understanding." "Exactly. To most, it looked like a reasonable move, but not to Unwai. Someone had placed a stone on the board. What kind of stone was it? What was the intent behind it? He needed to uncover the truth. Only then could he decide his next move. Lost in thought, Unwai spoke softly. "Let's first find out which group was eyeing Shinsum Valley." "Understood." Seong was just about to leave when Han Murin, just returning from patrol, came walking up from the entrance. Unwai had already given him instructions. Over the past few days, more and more people had been gathering in Yangyong, and they weren't leaving. They hovered just outside the city, as if waiting for something. That was what had caught Unwai's attention. Even if this was now territory claimed by Everlasting Snow Palace, it made little sense for outsiders to linger that long, unless there was some other reason. Unwai had sent Han Murin to find out what it was. Han Murin spoke. "I looked into what you asked, my lord. There are rumors a secret realm is about to appear." "A secret realm?" "Yes, word is spreading quietly. That one will open tomorrow around noon, on the transport route that connects to Saryang, specifically around Bikma Ancient Road." "And your source?" "One of the top courtesans at the Yangyong Pavilion." What exactly was a secret realm? It was a place where relics of the primordial era would surface. The so-called primordial era referred to the age when the original Murim was ruled by the ancient Orthodox clans and the thousand-year demonic cult. To even begin discussing the primordial era, one had to mention the thousand-year calamity that happened 700 years ago. The greatest catastrophe in Murim history, an event that wiped out a millennium of legacy in a single stroke. No one knew the cause. Not even a single record remained. Everything belonging to the 9 great clans was lost. And after that, secret realms began to appear. These realms began surfacing at random places across the Central Plains, deep ravines, remote trails, unpredictable corners of the world, and inside them were martial arts and treasures from the primordial era. Their appearances could be roughly tracked using an artifact called the Heavenly Compass. But even then, the compass wasn't perfectly reliable. The highest-grade compasses could sense activity within a span of a few jang. The lower tiers could only measure by kai or a single jang at most. Naturally, if a compass showed signs of activity, the location was kept secret. Entry into secret realms wasn't restricted. The more people who knew, the more fierce the competition, so silence was essential. Still, the world was vast and people's mouths were uncontrollable. Take this secret realm that was due tomorrow. Whispers had already started circulating in the underground. A faint smile tugged at Unwai's lips. Whatever the case, treasures from the primordial era were invaluable. It had been a while since something promising came along. Not all the memories in my head are perfect. It's not that I suffer from forgetfulness or anything, but I'm degrees NOVELIGHT degrees still human. I clearly remember the major events from my past life, but the insignificant ones? They're hazy at best. I try to sharpen those blurred memories whenever I can, but there are always things even I can't recall. Like things I've never seen or heard of before. Obviously, I can't remember what never existed for me in the first place. And this talk of a secret realm appearing in a backwater like Yangyong, this is the first I've ever heard of it. Wordlessly, I lifted the heavenly compass in my hand. Its needle spun wildly north, then west, then south, then east, circling round and round. I was currently at the peak of Bikma Ancient Road. I'd been combing the area for signs, and finally the compass had responded. The needle's spinning meant one thing: a secret realm would manifest soon. So it was real. Beside me, Seong glanced over and murmured, "Guess so. It really is a secret realm." I tucked the compass back into its leather case. Strange, very strange. Young master, Seong called to me. I turned my head. You seem oddly unsettled. Is this your first time seeing a secret realm appear in Yangho? It is. In either of your lives? In both. Truly, it was bizarre. Just like weapons and martial arts, secret realms had grades: Shinsum grade, Yonggi grade. Heaven and Earth grade, Martial God grade. If it's going to appear around noon tomorrow, and if the compass was reacting like this, that means the realm is at least mid-tier Heaven and Earth grade. I trailed off. Seong, watching me closely, tilted his head. What's bothering you? It's bothering me. Even if it's a secret realm I've never encountered before, even if it had nothing to do with me in my past life, if it were truly a Heaven and Earth grade realm, then I would have heard of it at least in passing. But I haven't, not once. In an instant, Chief Steward Seong's expression turned grave. Even if it wasn't in his memory, someone with unwise experience could usually infer the truth with reasonable certainty. And based on what Seong and Unwai were both thinking, there was only one possible conclusion that fit this situation. They didn't speak it aloud. All Seong asked was a single question. You're not thinking of going in, are you? I smiled faintly. A secret realm shows up in our own front yard, and I'm supposed to hand it over to someone else. How could I possibly do that? Gods. Why are you like this? At this point, there was no need to be surprised. Seong's excessive concern had become routine. It was something I could just let be. There are already more than 50 warriors at the Yonggi realm level gathered in Yangho. We haven't seen any Heaven and Earth realm warriors yet, but it's only a matter of time. Even if we put strict control on the courtesan's lips at the Yangho pavilion, rumors spread in the blink of an eye. And? What do you mean, and? Young master, there's still a whole day left. A full day before the realm opens. Do you know how many martial artists will sniff this place out in that time? You're seriously going to dive headfirst into that chaos? A smile tugged at my lips. Aren't you curious? Curious about what? Why I've never heard of it. What could possibly be inside that it had to be completely erased from existence? I clasped my hands behind my back. No matter how many times I said it, this was far too strange. There's only one reason to completely bury the existence of a secret realm. It's when something truly unimaginable has been found inside. And by unimaginable, I mean the kind of treasure that, the moment it's revealed, would cause the entire martial world to descend like a swarm of locusts. So I started thinking, if someone wanted to hide the appearance of a secret realm, what would they need to do first? Step 1, eliminate all witnesses. Step 2, kill everyone who knows those witnesses entered the realm. Step 3, perfectly conceal one's identity. Only then would people be left to wonder. Did a realm really appear? What came out of it? What happened inside? And once enough time passes, people forget, even if someone tries to investigate afterward. If that person is also eliminated, then the whole operation becomes flawless. A secret realm that no one would ever know had existed. Really, at this point, this is unacceptable. No, there was no way I could leave this alone. Young master, fine, forget going in altogether. But you're not going in alone, are you? I didn't answer. Of course I intended to go alone. And Seong, realizing that without needing words, thumped his own chest in frustration. Unbelievable, I swear you'll be the death of me, then at least take me with you? I'll consider it. I turned away. There was much to be done, much to prepare. Let's head back. Yes, sir. The next day, between 9 and 11 a.m., Unwai stepped out of the Yangho branch alone, wearing only a light robe. Outwardly, he looked unburdened, but a closer inspection would have told a different story. First, on his wrist was a small object resembling a mirror, one that hadn't been visible before. It was a cave heaven mirror, Dongchenjiong, an artifact used to avoid getting lost inside a secret realm. Secret realms were, by nature, unstable and unpredictable spaces. No one could guess what dangers might lie within. Hidden traps, collapsing ground, even active formation arrays. The cave heaven mirror's color changed in response to fluctuations in the ambient energy. Under normal conditions, it remained white. If the surrounding energy began to shift, it turned blue. If that shift contained killing intent, it turned red. And if it began to resonate with the overwhelming energy of heaven and earth, the level of heavenly essence, the mirror turned black. And when it turned black, that was the sign to turn back immediately without hesitation. That was the law inside a secret realm. At his waist, Unwai had 4 throwing knives brought from the Hanbing sect. His travel pouch held 10 more as spares, along with 5 swords. He also carried several energy pills and wound-sealing medicine. This was solid preparation. He'd already made up his mind. He would enter the secret realm alone. No one present voiced any objections, but concern was plainly visible in their expressions. That was fine. Unwise experience was not just vast, it was overwhelming. He knew what was possible and what wasn't. He knew what steps would lead to success and which ones would lead to failure. He had clear standards. He knew when something was reckless and what would be needed to survive it. All of it had already been calculated in his mind, and he had no interest in explaining it. It would only waste words and wear out his voice. Above all, this wasn't a reckless dive into a mystery. He might suffer an injury or two. But Unwai was confident he could claim the treasure within. As he always had, he would prove it with his steps. Unwai turned his head and looked at Chief Steward Seong. His title was Guardian and Grand Steward. His cultivation realm, Spirit Ascension Stage. Chenpeng was still at the Root Heaven Stage, as was Han Murin. Both were certain to break through to the dual light manifestation realm soon, but no one could say exactly when that would be. As for Wanyang, she was already at the first level of the dual light manifestation realm, Yang Light Duality. Unwai hesitated for a moment, then opened his mouth. Chief Steward Seong. Yes, young master. I'll be away for a few days, handle the branch affairs in my absence, Han Murin Chenpeng. Yes, you too will focus on cultivation. During that time you may learn from the chief steward if necessary, and Wanyang. Wanyang flinched in surprise. Unwai's tone was far heavier than usual. It's been a while, but you'll have to dress as a man again. Me? Hyun Sialan, the Yangnyong branch lord of Everlasting Snow Palace, never entered a secret realm. He remained at the branch, tending to official duties and patrolled with the chief steward every 4 hours. That's the version I want out there. Think you can pull it off? It wasn't anything new for Wanyang to disguise herself as a man. But men and women were physically different. Even the sound their feet made when touching the ground was distinct. If those details were handled properly, and if a spirit ascension expert assisted her from the side, then for a few days at least, she could perfectly imitate Unwai's presence. I think I can do it. No, I can do it. Unwai silently turned and began to walk. A moment later, a sound transmission whisper reached Chief Steward Seong's ear. Take care of the branch. Seong nodded quietly. Bikma Ancient Road was already swarming with people. The secret realm was set to appear on the 5th bend hill of the road. The heavenly compass reacted strongest at that hill. If the estimate was off, it wouldn't be by more than 5 jang in either direction. From the cliff that overlooked Bikma Ancient Road, Unwai narrowed his eyes. Wanyang had compiled a thorough list of outsiders who had recently gathered in Yangnyong and passed it to him. That man leaning against the big tree down there, mid-40s, he was Gong Myonggu, the drunken swordsman. His realm, harmonization stage. Unwai shifted his gaze. 5 men clustered together by the brush. Among them was Wang Deason, the Iron Fist guest, an elder of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect. His realm, 5 banners form. The other 4 were martial artists from the same sect, all following Wang Deason. 2 were at the 5 dragon blooming star stage, 1 at 3 flowers gathering purity. A cold gaze pierced through the air. When Unwai turned his head, he saw a man in a mask. The glint of the man's eyes through the mask was chilling. According to Wanyang's intel, that was Sashin Yu, the ghost-faced assassin. Known as the future of the ghost sect, he was highly valued by the current sect Master Baek Yongju, who had already named him as her successor. A rising star of the assassination world. Current realm, harmonization stage. Unwai met Sashin Yu's gaze in silence. Before long, the assassin was the one to look away first. Unwai turned his eyes back downward. There was also Ming Sowa, the venomous snake fairy, with a long scar slashed under her eye, a woman infamous for her poisons. Nearby were 3 martial artists known collectively as the 3 Thieving Devils, who were notorious for stealing and murdering without a second thought. And then there was Ju Soa, the thousand-handed beauty, the heir of the Killing Sword sect, a sect with a single inheritor per generation. Said to be the closest woman in the world to the ideal of absolute beauty, Unwai had to admit, even in his eyes, she was astonishingly beautiful. Her cultivation, 5 banners form, and these were just a few. It was shocking how many had caught wind of this place. But even more shocking, Unwai hadn't recognized a single one of them. Sashin Yu, the ghost-faced assassin. Future of the ghost sect. That sect would be annihilated about 30 years from now, and up to the very end, the sect master had been Baek Yongju. Unwai had never once heard the name Sashin Yu. Wang Deason of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect. In his past life, Unwai had personally exterminated every elder from that sect, and none of them had been named Wang Deason. Ming Sowa, the venomous snake fairy, never heard of her. The three thieving devils, same. At best, he vaguely recalled the name Ju-soa. In the central blood sect, there had been a bald pervert who lost his mind whenever a beautiful woman was mentioned. Thanks to him, Unwai remembered the names of every beauty the man had ever raved about. Ju-soa, the thousand-handed beauty, had been one of them, a woman who'd one day simply disappeared from Murim. It seemed today was the day she vanished. Fascinating. What on earth had happened inside that realm? Among those below, there were undoubtedly some concealing both name and origin. But who were they? A rough count suggested nearly 100 people. Was it one of them, or were they still just watching from the shadows? Unwai tapped his face. His disguise art was flawless. It had to be. In his previous life, he had gathered numerous martial techniques from exploring secret realms. One of them was the transforming body disguise technique, a forbidden art passed down by Wan Mingnip, the infamous black-faced color demon, a lustful degenerate with unmatched skill in disguise. Of all the techniques Unwai knew, none surpassed this one. Let it be clear, it was the pinnacle of disguise arts. His eyes were now drawn long to the sides. His lips were ordinary, so was the bridge of his nose, his jawline plain. His body unremarkable, a face you might pass once or twice on the street and never remember. He'd used this face more than a few times in his past life. It had a name. Nameless, that was the name of this face. And soon, very soon, the secret realm opened. Wang Decen, elder of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect, stood silently, gazing at the now-opened secret realm. "Elder, are you not going in?" His first disciple, Gu Yang, asked from beside him, but Wang Decen remained motionless. Wait, his low voice carried unmistakable weight, and he was right. Secret realms were unique. Above all, the treasures within weren't granted according to who entered first. The distance to the realm was considerable, at least 50 jang by estimation, and even a casual glance confirmed that more than 50 others were taking the same wait-and-see approach as Wang Decen. Making any sudden move or provoking a fight from the moment the secret realm opened would be suicide. Everyone gathered here was wound tight, ready for anything. A little caution never hurt. Before long, people began entering the realm. Wang Decen swept his gaze across the area. Only 3 individuals remained. One of them, a woman of overwhelming beauty. That must be Ju-soa, the thousand-handed beauty. Truly, a face worthy of being called the most beautiful in the world. He licked his lips. Ju-soa caught his gaze and smiled faintly. "Aren't you Elder Wang Decen of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect?" "I am. Any women in your life, Elder?" Then stop making that face like a horny mutt in heat." Well, that was unexpected. So Ju-soa turned out to be this crass. He'd heard she was refined, elegant. Ugly bastards always get the most worked up. Before Wang Decen could say a word, his disciple Gu Yang shouted angrily. "You impudent wench, do you know who you're speaking to? This man is. Save it, I'll see you inside." And with those words, Ju-soa turned on her heel and stepped boldly into the secret realm. Wang Decen gave a soft snort and turned his head. Now, aside from the Iron Rhythm Sword sect group, only 2 men remained. One of them had a body as small as a child. Barely 5 chiak in height, his face was completely obscured. A mask, a black conical hat, and an oversized robe that looked like it had been stolen from his father. It dragged along the ground, far too large for his frame. Only the visible eyes and a faintly exposed collarbone suggested he might be male. If the robe had covered him fully, even his gender would have been a mystery. Wang Decen turned again. The last man was utterly average. Average build, average features, average proportions. The slightly slanted eyes were a bit unusual, but still well within the range of the forgettable. Except for one thing, his eyes. Those eyes were sunken, cold. Eyes that only true masters possessed. Eyes that spoke of resolve. "I don't like this feeling." To be honest, Wang Decen had stumbled onto this place by chance. He'd picked up /NOVELIGHT/ a bit of intel and had come to check it out. He'd even considered entering the realm, but now something was gnawing at him. He called out to the man. "You there?" The man turned to face him. "If it's not too much trouble, may I ask your name?" The man gave a thin smile. "Nameless." Wang Decen's brow twitched. "Nameless. If a man claimed to have no name, then clearly he meant to hide his identity. Not going in? Still deciding. I'd recommend not going." "Any reason?" Nameless met Wang Decen's gaze with those emotionless eyes. "The Iron Rhythm Sword sect. It's more valuable than people think. Especially the sacred relic you're guarding. That's worth more than you know, but the sect leader alone cannot protect it. I didn't know before, but you seem to have a decent instinct." Gu Yang looked like he was about to interrupt again, but Wang Decen stopped him with a firm grip on the shoulder. A silent signal, don't speak. Gu Yang swallowed hard and backed down. Wang Decen asked calmly, I appreciate the compliment, but how do you know about our relic? Oh, I know it well, you'd best be careful, and starting now you should seriously consider something. Is that relic worth risking the annihilation of your entire sect? You seem to know a great deal. Would you tell me your real name? Nameless shook his head. If I gave my name, people would come after me. Why invite trouble? From those words, Wang Decen gleaned one thing. This man was absolutely certain he'd claim the secret realm's treasure, and it wasn't baseless bravado. From one master to another, even one as accomplished as Wang Decen at the Five Banners form stage, he could see it clearly. He made his decision. Our Iron Rhythm Sword sect will withdraw from this. A wise choice. And, though I don't know who you are, I'll discuss what you said with our sect leader. Seriously. That's also wise. If, in the future, you ever require assistance from the Iron Rhythm Sword sect, just mention this day. Unlikely. But I'll keep it in mind. Without hesitation, Wang Decen spoke. We're pulling out. Elder, Gu Yang tried to stop him, but Wang Decen's will was firm. I said we're withdrawing. Understood. Wang Decen turned away. The man in the wide hat and oversized robe was still standing there, not entering. He remained just outside the secret realm's entrance, observing in silence. Nameless glanced once at the small-framed man, then stepped into the secret realm without hesitation. Only then did the small man follow him in, and with that, the secret realm closed. Wang Decen, who had observed everything from start to finish, returned to the Iron Rhythm Sword sect. The first law of a secret realm: once inside, panic is death. The interior of a secret realm is wholly severed from the outside world. The moment you cross the threshold, nothing from the outside can be trusted. A snow-covered mountain may suddenly shift into a searing inferno where the heat alone could boil a man alive. A narrow ridge may vanish into fog so thick you can't see your own hand, until you're already tumbling off a cliff. Sial Unwai, no, Nameless, stepped across the threshold. The first thing he checked was the cave heaven mirror strapped to his wrist. Blue. That meant the surrounding energies were beginning to fluctuate, still stable for now, but verging on change. Without hesitation, Nameless surveyed the terrain. The air was oppressive, and behind him and on both sides loomed sheer walls. Embedded in the stone were rocks that shimmered faintly with a violet sheen. Nameless narrowed his eyes. For a sealed-off area, it was unnaturally bright. The light was trickling from those strange rocks, thin, nearly imperceptible threads of radiance leaking into the air. Demon Eye Stone, is it? His voice was grave. He'd expected this secret realm to be unusual, but Demon Eye Stones, and of this caliber. That was beyond what even he had anticipated. Not just ordinary Demon Eye Stones, either. These were top grade. Relics from the vanished thousand-year demon cult, long lost during the cataclysm known as the Millennium Calamity. Some say it all began with a single question. Who were the true rulers of the Age of Primordials? Only two names ever come up: the Martial Alliance and the Demon Cult. No others mattered. Roughly 2,000 years ago, the Demon Cult had unified the entire martial world, ruling for 1,000 years. It was only after that long reign that people began calling it the Thousand-Year Demon Cult. The Martial Alliance, forged by every orthodox sect uniting as one, rose to challenge the demon hegemony. That was the beginning of the Millennium Calamity, an all-consuming war that obliterated a millennium's worth of history. No one knows how it ended. No one knows why all 9 sects of the old martial world vanished, why the demon cult was eradicated, or why the Central Plains were left a ruin. And no one, absolutely no one, can explain why, ever since that cataclysm, relics from the Age of Primordials keep emerging from secret realms. Nameless included. The appearance of a demon eye stone inside a realm like this could mean only one thing. This was a demonic realm, and not just any, one of the highest grade. Originally, this realm had been classified as Heaven-Earth grade. It was not. This was minimum War God grade. That's what the demon eye stone implied: high-grade instability, dangerous volatility. A lesser man would have feared it. Nameless was intrigued. Even as he analyzed the light, his eyes continued sweeping the maze-like terrain. A labyrinth. No human presence detectable nearby. Even the faintest trace of breath is smothered. The ambient energy here is interfering with the senses. But why? What is it hiding? Hypotheses spun through his mind, assembling and dissolving in moments. But that wasn't what mattered. He'd learned by confronting it head-on. He drew his sword and walked forward, 8 slow, measured steps. Then he raised his NOVYLIGHT blade toward a patch of pale, swirling mist. And the mist parted. 2 men emerged from within, weapons drawn, eyes wary, exactly as they should be. The second law of a secret realm: anyone you meet inside is an enemy until proven otherwise. The 2 men locked eyes with Nameless, and he stared back without flinching. The taller of the 2, a man in his late 30s with a scar curling like a knife wound down his cheek, was the first to speak. "Well now, looks like someone beat us to the spot." His scar twitched grotesquely whenever he spoke. Beside him stood a man built like a fortress, likely in his mid-40s, thick-limbed, broad-chested, a walking slab of iron. Nameless could feel their internal energy from where he stood. Both were in the 3 Flowers Gathering Purity realm. No doubt about it, the scarred man introduced himself. "I am Beak Wontak, called the Soaring Dragon Sword. This man beside me is Gu Pyong, known as the Soul-Severing Blade. Perhaps you've heard of us." Nameless smiled, calm and pleasant. "Of course I have. Beak Wontak, famed in the south for his swordplay, and Gu Pyong, the man who wiped out 5 demonic clans in southern Tianan overnight. Who in the martial world hasn't heard your names?" Praise makes even a bear dance. The 2 men looked pleased, though they didn't lower their guard. "Glad someone appreciates us," Wontak said. "But who are you exactly? Mind introducing yourself?" "Gladly. I hail from Hwasong Prefecture, from the clan holdings on Mount Hwasong. My name is Nameless, no alias to speak of." Nameless, you say?" It was a name that practically screamed false identity, just like the one he'd used with Wang Deason before entering the realm. Still smiling, Nameless continued smoothly. "There's been some confusion about my name before, but I assure you, it's quite real. Hwasong Prefecture is home to several martial clans, the greatest among them being the Mu clan. I am their second son." "Second son, huh?" "Yes, as you know, tradition dictates that the first son inherits everything. Those of us born second or later, well, we find other paths." "Ah, I understand. That explains everything." It was a common story. Bloodlines had rules. The firstborn was always the heir. Everyone else, second sons, distant cousins, either found their own way or lived in their brother's shadow. "The Mu clan, then," Wontak mused. "I'll remember it. I'd be honored, truly. For a senior like yourself to remember my humble name is more than I could ask." "Then tell me, what brings you to this realm?" "As you've likely guessed, treasure. I want to inherit the Mu clan legacy." But I'll be honest. I never thought I'd be the one to claim it. My cultivation may be at the 5 dragon blooming star level, but I now stand before 2 seniors who have reached 3 Flowers Gathering Purity. I'm not so arrogant as to think I have a chance. I'll withdraw." "Withdraw? Since when does a warrior talk of surrendering?" Their gazes were skeptical now, almost condescending. Nameless smiled again, unbothered. "Forgive me if I spoke poorly. What I mean is, I know my limits. Rather than pursue something I cannot claim, I would rather assist the 2 of you. I believe that would be more worthwhile." "Assist us?" "Yes, with your permission, of course." The 2 men exchanged a glance. Whispered words passed between them, barely audible. Gu Pyong, silent until now, finally spoke. "Very well. If you help us retrieve the treasure of this realm, we will remember your debt and repay it in full." "I thank you." Hwasong Prefecture. "Mu clan, did I hear that right?" "Yes, senior." The repeated emphasis was not a mistake. Nameless was planting the name, carefully and deliberately. He simply appeared as a humble newcomer to the martial world. The 2 masters seemed to like that. Just like that, the 3 of them became a party. They continued deeper into the realm. It was a maze. They followed the walls, turning corners, pressing forward. Until suddenly, the cave heaven mirror on Nameless's wrist flashed red. The air had shifted. The realm was now saturated with killing intent. At the same moment, both men spun and raised their swords behind them. Nameless did the same. They were all tense, alert, and rightly so. Thick crimson mist had begun to spill into the corridor, crawling like blood down the walls, slithering across the floor like a living thing. Beak Wontak and Gu Pyong frowned. "This isn't good," Wontak murmured. "There's no other path," Gu Pyong said flatly. "Wrap your body in inner energy, we force our way through." But then Wontak sent a whisper through sound transmission. "I'm not so sure." Gu Pyong's gaze flickered. He responded the same way. "Not sure. What if that mist devours people? Throwing ourselves in might be suicide, but isn't there a better option standing right beside us?" It didn't take long for Gu Pyong to catch the hint. "You mean, toss him in first? We weren't planning on dragging dead weight anyway." Fair, no more words were needed. Gu Pyong shoved Nameless forward. "You, walk into that mist. Nameless feigned shock. Me, sir? Yes, the mist might weaken after consuming a body. We need our strength for the traps ahead. But, I haven't forgotten the Mu clan of Hwasong Prefecture. Senior, think carefully. Will you give us gratitude or resentment? Gu Pyong's eyes glinted coldly. Do you understand? Why, yes, I understand. Nameless stepped forward like a man condemned, dragging his feet into the crimson fog. It was a performance worthy of an award. Under the violet glow of the demonized stones, his figure faded until it vanished entirely into the mist. Not a scream. No sound at all. Think he's dead? Maybe. They watched the fog carefully. The color had lightened slightly, just as expected. If the mist was trap-based demonic energy, then sacrifices would neutralize it. Nameless had entered as the offering. He'd probably been torn apart, or melted. Either way, the fog had thinned. Not bad. We should throw a few silver ingots to the Mu clan someday. They both chuckled, but they wouldn't, of course not. Words can be weapons too. Even warriors of the Three Flowers realm would have spent energy killing a 5-dragon cultivator. But instead, they'd done it with words and weakened the trap in the process. A clean kill. Let's go. Gu Pyong nodded. Together, the two wrapped themselves in inner energy and charged into the fog. A path opened through the mist as they ran, and down that path walked Nameless, alive, silent, each step as weightless as air. The footwork that had exterminated 4 great sects in a single night. There was no chance the two masters would ever notice it. Those who were truly informed knew what to do the moment they stepped into a secret realm. Stay alert. Just as Seol Yangho, now acting under the alias Nameless, had done, so too did the other top experts like Ju Soa realize at once. This place was no ordinary realm. They could tell from a single glance at the demonized stones. Demonic realms were notoriously unpredictable. Even surviving them was difficult, let alone navigating or controlling them. The thousand-handed beauty, Ju Soa, quickly emptied her pouch of training elixirs and spirit pills into her mouth. The concoctions would shield her mind and blood vessels from demonic energy. As the pills took effect, her expression grew cool and focused. She drew her sword in one smooth motion, and then she waited. Because in a secret realm, the goal isn't to snatch treasure first. It's to survive. Preparation was survival. Observation was survival. That was the foundation. Even if you never reached the treasure at the end, the things you picked up along the way, side products, hidden martial scrolls, could be equally valuable. Sometimes a single scroll discovered by chance could change your entire life. Especially when experts at the harmonization stage had entered the field. Charging ahead recklessly was suicide. Ju Soa made the only rational choice. What kind of lunatic with a lower cultivation would dare rush forward? Only a fool. About 15 minutes passed before someone else appeared in the violet-lit corridor. Ju Soa swore internally. Well, well, if it isn't the famous drunken swordsman himself. Gong Myonggu, he laughed boisterously, voice echoing off the stone. Ha ha ha, to think I'd run into the thousand-handed beauty in a place like this. Must be fate. His hand had already slipped onto his sword's hilt. First law of the realm, everyone you meet is an enemy until proven otherwise. Ju Soa groaned inside. Shit, just my luck. A harmonization expert. While she herself was at the peak of 5 banners form, there was a world of difference between that and someone from the 4 realms of heaven and earth. Still, she didn't back down. Her grip on her sword shifted, readying it. The tension was thick as a blade. And then SHFF? A shadow lunged from the darkness, feet slamming into the stone, headed straight for Gong Myonggu. He scowled and swung his sword, chi-yitting. A dagger clashed with the blade in midair, scattering wild currents of natural energy. Both men winced, Gong Myonggu in clear annoyance, the masked attacker unseen beneath the veil. Well now, I see someone doesn't waste time. Barely inside the realm and already spilling killing intent. The attacker landed lightly on the floor. It was Sashin, the ghost-faced assassin, the favored successor of the ghost sect. His eyes still burned with that same cold bloodlust, even as he casually stepped back 2 paces. His feet moved, but his intent never wavered. Gong Myonggu turned toward Ju Soa. How about it? Shall we join forces? She gave a half laugh. You mean right after you tried to kill me? It was just caution, I assure you, but look at him. Sashin isn't here for a chat. He'll kill both of us. Unless you're hesitating. Just as Ju Soa opened her mouth to respond, a new sound filled the corridor. Drag, drag, something long and heavy was being pulled across the floor. All 3 turned. A short man in an oversized dark robe approached, his hem dragging behind him. His face was hidden beneath a deep conical hat and cloth mask. Gong Myonggu swallowed hard, No. A chill ran down his spine. Something felt deeply wrong. Sashin seemed to sense it too. His gaze narrowed behind the grotesque demon mask. They had seen this man before outside the realm. He hadn't felt like this then. But now the air around him reeked of danger. The man looked up. Two eyes stared out beneath the hat. Like rabbits before a tiger, both Gong Myunggu and Sashin flinched involuntarily. That was all the time he needed. The figure moved, faster than thought. No one could follow his motion. His arm flicked once, Charak. Gong Myunggu's body split cleanly in two, blood spraying as his torso slid apart. Then the other arm swung, crack. Sashin slammed into the wall with a thunderous crash. Gok, he collapsed, limbs trembling, then fell still. Two harmonization experts, dead in a single move each. It was impossible. The disparity in power was too extreme. Only someone at the mythic realm could create a scene like this. That's what he was, a mythic-level expert, yet oddly, he didn't touch Juso as she smiled. "It's been a while, uncle." The man removed his mask. A boy's face was revealed, but the voice that came out was low, mature, a full-grown man's. "It has, young lady." He looked annoyed. "I told you repeatedly through sound transmission not to enter. Why did you ignore me?" "I was curious," she said with a shrug. "You know how I am. If I hadn't found you first. The consequences could have been dire." She scratched her head sheepishly. No arguments there. "You understand what this is, don't you? It's a demonic realm. We need to leave immediately." There was genuine concern in his voice. She smiled again. Jusoa was the heir of the Killing Sword sect, a sect that passed down its lineage to only one successor each generation. Her father was the previous sect leader, and the man before her, his name was Jeong Myuhyun, a master of the mythic realm. 20 years ago, while cultivating a forbidden technique known as returning smoke childface art, something went wrong. His body had permanently assumed the form of a child, but in return he gained immense power. He was, in reality, in his mid-40s. He had many titles: Ghost-Eyed Boy, Blood Cloud Boy, Demon-Eyed Boy. He usually didn't bother with disguises, but this time was different. Jusoa meant to ask why, but he was already speaking again. "Continued exposure to demonic energy will have long-term effects. Let's move." They walked off together, disappearing into the tunnel. Jusoa never saw the faint smile cross his youthful face, nor did she stop to ask how he had found her so quickly, or why the hem of his robe was soaked in blood. In the maze lined with demonized stones, the demonic energy surged non-stop. Experts of the Three Flowers realm could endure it, but barely. Baek Wontak and Gu Pyong had worked together for years. Their coordination was seamless, their teamwork near perfect. They made it through the labyrinth with little issue, but what they saw next made them stop cold. A massive stone chamber. They stood in stunned silence, staring. Dozens of dark altars filled the room, looming like sentinels. "Huh!" Baek Wontak let out a breath in awe. The light from the stones above cast clear shadows on every surface, illuminating every feature of the chamber and the altars alike. They scanned the room. No traps, no hostile energy. But the sight of those black altars, lined with ancient weapons, rusted and decayed, held a majesty of their own. They were ruined, yes, but once they must have been glorious. Gu Pyong stepped toward one of the altars and inspected a relic, cracked, corroded, worthless now. Pity, even if they're relics from the age of primordials, they've long since turned to scrap. If they hadn't degraded, they'd be priceless. Just intact enough to carry out would have made them rich. Baek Wontak clicked his tongue. Not worth it. There wasn't even a storage artifact to preserve them, and weight was everything in a secret realm. To him, they were just junk, but then Baek Wontak froze. He'd heard something move. His eyes darted around. One of the weapons was gone. There was a gap where there hadn't been before. Wait, wasn't there one just? Rumble. They both spun back-to-back, inner power exploding outward. From the ceiling, a torrent of demonic energy poured down. It twisted and coiled, forming a massive web that sealed the chamber. They ran, but it was too fast. Before they'd taken 2 steps, the net had closed. Damn it! They'd hesitated. They'd let down their guard. They'd imagined the past glories of rusted weapons. They'd wasted time. In a secret realm, the third law is simple. Never drop your guard. They broke it. And now they would pay. Then a figure emerged from within the web. They stared. "You? How?" It was nameless. In his hands were the very weapons that had been sitting on the altar. It made no sense. The demonic energy around him coiled like smoke, yet did him no harm. It was as if he were immune. As if he were one of them. As if he had always belonged. That couldn't be. He was only at the 5-dragon blooming star level. If he were immune to demonic energy, the two of them would have noticed. "You thought they were worthless?" Nameless's voice rang through the chamber. The darkness swirled tighter with every word, but the source wasn't his blood, it was the weapons themselves. These relics may look like junk, but they were wielded by the demonic masters of Novight, the primordial age. Rusted, broken, perhaps, but the essence, he raised one. The swirling intensified. The demonic imprint inside them remains. Demonic energy never disappears, it only transforms. The weapons lifted into the air. Each radiated a pulse, forming a great storm around him. These echoes, they form a path. A path back to the past, his eyes gleamed. And a key to unlock the future. As Nameless finished speaking, the demonic energy erupting from the ancient relics surged with newfound intensity. Wreathed in violet light from the demonized stones, the black aura swallowed the entire chamber in a dark, majestic spectacle. A flicker of panic crossed the faces of the two warriors caught in the webbed net. The worn-out weapons they had dismissed as junk were now radiating the overwhelming might of the primordial age, resurrected under Nameless's command. "You, what are you?" one of them managed to ask, voice tight with disbelief. Nameless smirked faintly. "Is that really what you want to know on the brink of death?" He'd never intended to answer, even if they had asked earlier. "I thought you might at least break through 2 more chambers. I didn't expect you to be this pathetic." The cold indifference in his voice stoked a burning fury within them. Even if they were to die, consumed by demonic energy in the next breath, they wanted nothing more than to rip that smug expression from his face. Their eyes met, and in an instant both warriors launched themselves forward. The power erupting from their bodies was enough to signal a mutual destruction. It was the full force of a martial artist at the level of 3 flowers gathering purity, bolstered even further by innate spiritual essence. The very ground cratered beneath their feet as explosive force tore through the chamber. But their attacks never even reached him. In truth, they never could have. Nameless stirred the relics with a single flick of his wrist. Instantly, the demonic energy surrounding him surged like a tidal wave, crashing down upon the 2 assailants. They swung their swords, hurled their fists, tried everything they knew, but it was all in vain. This realm, this secret realm, was no mere illusion of the demonic path. It wasn't of heaven and earth rank. It was of the martial god class, and the energy pouring from such a realm wasn't ordinary. The altar wasn't there by accident, nor were the relics. Only those who understood their value could pass through. Only those who could recognize, uphold, and wield that value would be granted a chance to survive. The 2 warriors' bodies were engulfed in seconds. They began to convulse, blood spewing from their mouths as every vein in their bodies writhed in agony. Their bones twisted and shattered. The blood vessels in their eyes exploded, and dark blood jetted from all 7 orifices like geysers. Nameless stood above them in silence. "Farewell," he said softly. Then he turned and walked away without another word. By the time he stepped into the next chamber, Baek Wontak and Gu Pyong were gone, utterly annihilated, not a trace of ash remaining. Even the demonic aura that had consumed the room had vanished completely, as if it had never been. Dozens of altars lined the chamber, brimming with relics, and one empty altar. That was all. It was unmistakable now. Nameless was the one farthest ahead. This was the final gate. The 3rd gate he had passed just before this hadn't been much. Just a straight hallway riddled with hidden blades and arrows, though honestly, the 2nd gate had been far more threatening. And now, at last, the final trial awaited. As the massive stone door slowly opened before him, Nameless stepped forward. Between the gaps of the long row of demonized stones, black demonic energy spiraled like a vortex. At the very center of the chamber, a formation had been etched into the floor, one that writhed and pulsed as if alive. Nameless stared down at it in silence, digging into the recesses of his memory. The soul-seizing black demon array. He had seen countless formations and martial arts in his life as the former heaven's judgment of the central blood sect. This one was ancient, a relic of the primordial age, created by the demon lords of the millennium demonic sect for their own cultivation. At its center, it drew in the ambient energy of the world, transmuting it into demonic force. That energy would then be compressed and sealed within the formation, driving it to the highest threshold it could contain. It served 2 purposes: cultivation, yes, but also complete exclusion of outsiders. No martial artist without resistance to demonic energy could hope to survive it. But this array had been modified, engineered to target a single individual. Whatever was sealed here, it was no ordinary thing. Nameless glanced around. The The range of the formation was about 10 jang in radius. Beyond that, there was nothing else in the room that posed a threat. He stepped closer. As if sensing his presence, the outer rim of the formation trembled with a low, sinister hum. Tusk. Nameless clicked his tongue and scratched the back of his head. It would be a lie to say he expected to come out unscathed. But accepting the demonic energy into his body, that wasn't an option. He gave the weapon in his hand a slight shake, testing its reaction, but the tightly bound aura of the formation didn't even flinch. He tucked the nearly crumbling weapon back into his robe and took a deep breath. What was demonic energy, truly? It was the raw condensation of human desire and obsession, twisted into form. The more you tried to suppress it, the stronger it became. It devoured reason and eroded nature. But in terms of sheer destructive force, nothing matched it, and that in itself made it dangerously beautiful. The blood energy used by the central blood sect shared the same nature, nearly indistinguishable from demonic energy. Through countless trials, Nameless had come to understand one absolute truth. What is good? What is evil? The distinction is an illusion. Demonic energy is nothing more than a mirage. It becomes real only because we fear it, because we resist. The moment you try to fight it, you bind yourself in the chains of causality. But if you accept it for what it is, you are set free. This world is filled with contradictions. What is liberation? Freedom from attachment. And attachment? Suffering. To be bound is to build a prison for yourself. Nameless lived by what he had come to understand, by what he had come to believe. Without the slightest hesitation, he stepped into the heart of the soul-seizing black demon array. The demonic energy swallowed him whole. But it didn't burn his flesh. It didn't strike him down. It simply took him in. And the moment he reached the center, his entire body froze. Centuries-old demonic energy, long sealed away, surged through him, ripping into his flesh, bursting through bone, clawing at his soul. The pain was excruciating. His skin felt as if it were being torn apart, his joints as if crushed to powder. The formation tried to tear his body to shreds, and still Nameless smiled. He offered no resistance. He simply accepted it all. Then, just as the demonic energy had been on the verge of tearing him apart, its nature abruptly changed. Nameless's mind was already complete. No matter how much pain racked his body, he did not waver. It was because he felt no fear toward the demonic energy that its purest essence had begun to settle into his bloodstream. Demonic energy is not something to be resisted. It is something to be accepted. That is the answer. Standing at the heart of the formation, wrapped in swirling darkness, Nameless lowered his gaze. There, resting at his feet, was a single manual. He picked it up and read the bold title etched across the cover aloud. Demonic Blood Heavenly Gang Incantation. He swore. He had never heard that name in his entire life. Without hesitation, he flipped it open. As he read the first page, his brow furrowed. By the second page, then the third, Nameless was stunned. Ha! He swore. This was the most shocked he had been in ages. This wasn't just a martial manual. It was a cultivation art designed to completely rebirth its user into a true demon, a type of martial transformation technique. He began to read the incantation lines. Demonic blood pierces heaven, heart becomes steel. The demonic blood connects to the heavens, and the heart is hardened. 100 evils cannot invade, bloodline grows strong. No wickedness may penetrate it, and the veins grow resilient. Demonic energy enters, body becomes one with heaven and earth. The demonic force becomes the world itself within the body. 10,000 laws powerless, no harm shall ever come. Not even all the ways of the world can inflict a wound. He ran a hand down his face. He needed to say it again, to himself if nothing else. Nameless was shaken enough that his transforming body disguise technique nearly unraveled on its own. Now he understood. Why this realm had been so thoroughly hidden. Why everyone who had entered before had been silenced forever. What was the most valuable martial art of the Millennium demonic sect in the primordial age? The heavenly demons' techniques. The Central Blood sect had many manuals inherited from the Millennium demonic sect, but not a single one had ever belonged to the heavenly demon. Even at the moment of his death, Nameless had never found one. No, that wasn't true. It had been found, but it had never been revealed. The demonic blood heavenly gang incantation. This was the heavenly demon's martial art. A supreme cultivation method that strengthened the blood vessels using demonic energy, transforming the veins into vessels capable of enduring any kind of demonic force. The blood itself became a conduit of power, immune to all external influence, and more than that, capable of ruling over all other demonic energies. Even a breath of air could be transmuted into demonic force. Without this technique, the heavenly demon could not have existed. It was the core of the core. Nameless quietly closed the manual. He now had a very good idea of who had gone to such lengths to conceal this secret realm. Ju Soa suddenly felt something strange. It wasn't something she could explain. It was pure instinct. Even if this was a demonic realm, she still remembered most of the martial artists who had entered it. Among them had been masters at the level of 3 flowers gathering purity, 5 banners form, and even harmonization stage. There had been many. Even if the first gate unleashed a fog of demonic energy, someone at the level of 3 flowers gathering purity should have been able to push through. They might have taken some internal damage, but they wouldn't have died. The second gate had been trickier, but even that could be avoided. If one simply ignored the altar and charged ahead, they could dodge the demonic energy net that fell from the ceiling and enter the next chamber. The third gate was even simpler. A few patches of demonic mist covered the floor, and arrows, daggers, and various weapons had been triggered from the sides and front. But again, for someone at 5 banners form, it was all manageable. Yes, many of the martial artists who had entered might have lingered trying to assess the situation, but still, this didn't make sense. Why was there not a single person in sight, and why? Was the hem of Jeong Moo-hyun's robe soaked? NOV Cyrillic letter 456G Cyrillic letter 4BBT. Official version with blood. Now that she thought about it, it had been strange how he had immediately killed Gong Myung-gu and Sasha knew the moment he saw them. Could it be, in that short window of time, had he swept through the first chamber's entire labyrinth and slaughtered everyone? She didn't know exactly when Jeong Moo-hyun had entered. But if he had even half an hour, it would have been more than enough to kill dozens. No, not even half an hour. Just half of that would suffice. He was a mythic realm master. But why? Why go that far? Why had Jeong Moo-hyun come to this secret realm in the first place? He moved like someone who already knew what was hidden here. Young lady? Ah, yes. Jeong Moo-hyun, walking just ahead of her, smiled gently. This is the final chamber. You may want to prepare yourself. Yes. Uncle, Jeong Moo-hyun was her father's old friend and the sole guardian of the Killing Sword sect. But the moment they passed through the opened stone gate, Ju Soa saw it. A face she had never seen before, twisted with killing intent. Jeong Moo-hyun's face. There was already someone standing at the end of the path. A man whose appearance was so plain, it was almost unnatural. And yet, the words he spoke were anything but ordinary. I thought you'd come alone. Ju Soa turned her head slightly to glance at Jeong Moo-hyun. His expression hadn't changed. That twisted face, carved by murderous intent, and the unmistakable tremble of surprise he couldn't quite suppress. Why was he so shaken? Why was he seething with killing intent? She couldn't make sense of it. From the swirling vortex of demonic energy, Nameless gazed at Jeong Moo-hyun with unsettling calm and asked, So aside from the heavenly compass, there's another way to know exactly when a secret realm from the primordial age will appear, is there? Who are you? Who I am doesn't matter, not right now. What does matter? A faint smile played across Nameless's lips. Is that you, Jeong Moo-hyun, or someone who wants to restore the Millennium demonic sect? Ju Soa gasped in horror. Jeong Moo-hyun's brow instantly furrowed. I didn't expect the last one to enter the realm to reach this point so fast. It's not that I was fast, you were just slow. Ju Soa swallowed hard. She knew instinctively this wasn't her place to speak. This wasn't something she should interrupt. So she trusted her gut and slowly backed away from Jeong Moo-hyun. But he didn't even glance at her. From her point of view, that seemed like arrogance. The kind that says, I can kill you anytime I want. Silence you whenever I please. Nameless gave a short, amused laugh. We've met before, haven't we? So we have. You killed everyone else who came into this realm, yet you left her alive until now. Ah, I think I understand. You must have known exactly what this final chamber was. I've been wondering who went to such lengths to hide this realm. Now that question's been answered, I find myself curious about something else. The soul-seizing black demon array. It's a formation designed for one specific person. If you threw her into it, the demonic energy sealed inside would attack her instantly. And in that opening, Nameless trailed off, lifting the manual in his hand. You plan to steal this? I don't know what you're talking about. I suspected you from the beginning. That was no lie. Why hadn't Nameless entered the realm the moment it opened? Was it because his cultivation was lacking? Because it was dangerous? Because he wasn't sure who else might be there? No, none of those reasons applied. In his previous life, the existence of this realm had been buried, erased with surgical precision. But that required certain preconditions to be in place. This wasn't about those conditions. It was about what came before them. Who had entered the realm, who knew of its existence, to learn that there was only one viable strategy: enter last. When the Iron Rhythm Sword sect chose to retreat, you stayed behind watching me. Of course he did. No one knew who Nameless really was. It wasn't a real name, it was a mask. Just like how Wang Deason, an elder of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect, had sensed something from Nameless Seong Yangho, an expert of the mythic realm, must have felt it too. That's why he hadn't acted. Who knew when the realm might seal itself again? Drawing his sword then, and there would have been foolish. More than anything, there would be plenty of chances to kill someone inside the realm. But if he attacked prematurely, right there in the open, would the warriors of the Iron Rhythm Sword sect really just stand by? Some would flee, others would fight. Even for someone at the mythic realm, he couldn't guarantee the realm wouldn't close in that brief chaos. Seong Yangho had made the right call. You must have followed me in. You knew the sect was leaving, and you remembered the faces of everyone present. No reason to act before then. If you'd managed to steal this manual, you would have gone straight to the Iron Rhythm Sword sect after escaping. Or perhaps met with demonic cultivators elsewhere. A flicker of killing intent shimmered in Seong Yangho's eyes, and yet Nameless smiled. He couldn't help it. You don't even realize what I've come to understand today, Seong Yangho. He may look like a child now, but in the distant future he becomes a withered old man. One known to all the world as the Heavenly Ghost God, the vice-novelite lord of the Heavenly Demon Palace. No one knew his true name. He was only ever called the Heavenly Ghost God. His appearance had changed over the years, enough that Nameless had almost been fooled. But now that he looked closely, there was no doubt. Seong Yangho's voice was quiet, but it carried unmistakable threat. Hand over the manual, I'll let you live. Demonic energy surged around him, natural essence coiling at his fingertips, ready to strike at any moment. Nameless didn't flinch. He had another question, one far more important, the Vice Lord of the Central Blood Sect. Is Yucheng still alive? Yucheng, the Zen master of the demonic path. In Nameless's memory, he had always been a strange man. He was the Vice Lord of the Central Blood Sect, yet he never meddled in sect affairs. He never overstepped. He simply carried the weight of his title with quiet dignity, making the authority of the sect all the more imposing by contrast. That didn't mean he was absent or negligent. He handled the practical affairs, managed day-to-day operations, always busy. But his uniqueness wasn't in what he did, it was in who he was. The Blood Sect's Lord, Chendoja, was the sovereign of the martial world, a man who gripped the sect in an iron fist. And even he had warned Nameless, then the heaven's judgment, to leave Yucheng alone. To let him be. Not that Yucheng had ever gotten in his way, not once had he interfered. On the contrary, he'd helped. But even back then, Nameless had felt something. Off, something he couldn't name. What had Chendoja truly thought of Yucheng? He hadn't feared him, that much was clear. Nameless was certain of it. Chendoja had never known fear. He wasn't built for it. But he had been wary, and now, looking back, that wariness made perfect sense. Even Nameless, then the chief enforcer of the sect, had been left in the dark. Yucheng must have had a way to track when the Millennium Demonic Sect's secret realm would open, a way to understand its structure and layout. And with that information, he had acquired the sect's ancient techniques while deceiving the entire world. Wasn't it incredible? So absurd, Nameless couldn't help but laugh. You laugh too easily. To that, Nameless shook his head. That was a misunderstanding, a big one. I'm not someone who laughs all that much. Apologies, Nameless added with a half-smile, but I really have no idea what you're talking about. You don't? That's right. But one thing is obvious. That manual in my hand holds tremendous value. Hand it over. I may spare your life. Nameless shook his head once again. Still haven't figured out who's really desperate here, have you? There was one thing Nameless knew for certain, Yucheng's personality. If you don't deliver this manual to Yucheng, you're dead, and yet you're still bluffing like you have the upper hand. Seong Yangho remained silent. It seems you're struggling to understand the situation. Let me make it simple for you. I want answers and you want the manual in my hand, so let's make a deal. A deal? Be honest. What's the point in hiding anything at this stage? Answer my questions truthfully and the manual is yours. You think I trust you. Your face isn't even real. And, still don't know who holds the advantage here. Forget about my mask, start worrying about the one you're wearing. Seong Yangho ran a hand through his hair, eyes narrowing as if weighing his options. When he finally spoke, his voice dripped with killing intent. What do you want to know? There are a few things. Let's start with what I asked earlier. You don't have to answer. I can just burn the manual. At that, Jeong Moo-hyun clenched his jaw and slowly, reluctantly began to speak. You were right. I entered this realm because I was ordered to do so. By him, you mean Yu Cheng? Yes. What was your goal inside the realm? To kill everyone. To wipe out the Iron Rhythm Sword sect. Not just them, everyone who entered this realm and everyone who might investigate their disappearance. All of them were marked for death. You couldn't do that alone, but Yu Cheng wouldn't act directly either, so who's helping you? There was a pause. Jeong Moo-hyun let out a long breath and answered, Tianlin, Tianlin, a merchant guild operating across the Central Plains, known for controlling black markets and wielding influence in the underworld. They had even once reached their hands into Sialap. Nameless stared at him for a moment, then calmly asked, How did you get information about this realm? He told me. I'm not sure of the specifics, but I believe it's a divine artifact with limited uses. That was enough. More than enough, a massive breakthrough, but there was one more thing. What about her? Nameless asked, nodding toward Jusoa. Why did you bring her? Jeong Moo-hyun glanced at her and replied without emotion. As you said earlier, I intended to throw her into the soul-seizing black demon array to draw attention away. And in that moment, you'd seize the manual. Exactly. So she was never meant to leave this place alive. Jeong Moo-hyun answered with a face like ice. No outsider with knowledge of this realm can be allowed to live, not a single exception. Jusoa's eyes widened in horror. Her legs nearly buckled. Clearly, the shock hit her hard. Nameless didn't care. Why are you helping Yu Cheng? To reclaim the life I lost. A soft laugh escaped Nameless's lips. Living forever in the body of a child, it would be maddening. No matter how strong you are, no one takes you seriously. You're constantly dismissed, dragged into one mess after another. He understood. Jeong Moo-hyun stared at him, dead serious. Now hand it over. Nameless kept his word. He tossed the manual lightly to the side. But in that instant, the massive flood of demonic energy wrapped around Nameless surged toward the manual, no longer under his control, and began to devour it. No! Jeong Moo-hyun cried out and lunged, desperately snatching up the torn fragments of the manual. That was his first mistake. He had stepped into the formation, and inside this formation, every last shred of demonic energy was under Nameless's control. Cultivation level meant nothing here. The soul-seizing black demon array was that kind of formation. The previous owner of the array was the manual itself. But the moment Nameless took possession of it, he became the master of the array. Jeong Moo-hyun could only stare in stunned disbelief as the manual disintegrated into dust. Then he lifted his gaze and glared at Nameless. All that remained for him now was one thing, to capture me and torture me. And yet, even as the demonic energy surged toward him from all sides, he did nothing. That was his second mistake. The moment I extended my hand, the surrounding demonic energy began to writhe. At the same time he raised his inner force, all the demonic energy of the divine martial secret realm surged toward him in a frenzy, engulfing him in an instant. No matter how desperately one might wish for the restoration of the thousand-year demonic sect, with that much demonic energy flooding in, survival was simply impossible. GHH. GRAHH. Leaving his scream behind, I bolted. I spotted Jusoa. I grabbed her by the hair and sprinted again, the fourth rule of the secret realm. No matter what kind of reward appears in the final chamber, whether you throw it into the twilight furnace, smash it, or burn it, once its value is nullified, the realm will begin to collapse. The collapse starts from the center, which means the demonic energy sealed inside will begin rampaging wildly. I immediately reached into the twilight furnace and grabbed the decayed, ancient relic. The demonic energy veered away from me. My gaze lifted. Fragments of the demonized stones were beginning to shatter and fall, one by one. I narrowed my eyes. One of the fragments was glowing more brightly in a specific direction. Behind us, a mythic realm martial artist was radiating light, and the secret realm itself was crumbling. And beside me, dead weight. I slapped Jusoa across the face. Smack. Her eyes flew wide open. Get a grip. Why, yes. Follow me. The moment I sprang into motion, she followed without hesitation. We dashed toward a space that had begun to warp and distort. That was the exit. Without a shred of hesitation, I hurled myself forward, and Jusoa followed in my wake. What awaited us on the other side of the exit was not Beekma Ancient Road, the place where we'd entered. This was the Nine Dragon Upper Trail, a completely different landscape. But that's how secret realms work. The odds of emerging from the same place you entered are astronomically low, and once an exit is created, it never changes. Nameless, having made it out, turned immediately and aimed his sword at the exit. He focused, sharpened every sense. Time itself seemed to stop. The wind stirred, dust rose and drifted from the earth. Time passed, half an incense stick's worth. Even after that long, Nameless remained utterly still, unfazed by the passing time, unshaken by the presence of others. This, truly, was the state of total selflessness. The weight of that overwhelming stillness caused Ju Soa to drop to her knees, swallowing dryly over and over. Nameless had a simple reason for this stillness. Jeong Muhyun might still emerge. He was a mythic realm expert. Even if Nameless had briefly overpowered him within the secret realm by wielding demonic energy to perfection, it was all just trickery born of the realm's peculiar nature. The true test was now. He would need to call upon his false true breath and, if necessary, even his innate true chi. Jeong Muhyun would be exhausted and likely relieved to have made it out. Anyone human would feel that. Of course, martial artists at that level only experience such emotions for the briefest flicker of an instant, so most wouldn't even call it a vulnerability. But Nameless, he was confident he could seize that sliver of an opening. A moment's gap, that was enough. More time passed, and then the exit trembled, then dissipated like smoke. Only then did Nameless release his tension. He lowered his sword and turned to Ju Soa. Still visibly stunned, she was struggling to process everything that had just happened. It all felt far too unreal. She'd trusted him, and he had tried to kill her. Had he really stopped at just trying? She didn't want to imagine it. She turned her head and found Nameless looking straight at her. She flinched. This man. Who was he? He had such an ordinary face, but everything he said carried the weight of someone who'd lived and bled in the martial world for decades. And yet, judging by his cultivation, he seemed to be no higher than 5 dragon blooming star. She couldn't make sense of it. Was it possible? Had some incredible master deliberately concealed his cultivation to appear as though he were only at 5 dragon blooming star? Just who are you? You don't know. I'm asking because I don't know, so she really had no idea. I'm the one who saved your life. What? I saved you twice. Once when Jeong Muhyun tried to kill you. Once more when the secret realm collapsed. You don't remember. Of course she did. Ju Soa slowly rose to /NOVELIGHT slash her feet and bowed deeply, forming a formal martial salute with her fists. Forgive my late greeting. Ju Soa, master of the killing sword sect, greets the one who saved her life. That's enough. How does it feel to be betrayed? She blinked. Was he mocking her? Does it hurt? Or are you just sad? Both. Both, huh, I see. So do you have anywhere to go? I was considering joining the Martial Alliance or the Sichuan Alliance. But it sounds like you have something in mind. I do. I believe in repaying debts, especially ones involving my life, so tell me. Nameless proceeded to say something truly strange. Not long ago, the master of Yangyong changed hands. You probably heard about it. I did. I owe the new branch master a debt. I'd like you to repay it on my behalf. That's the place where the bastard child of everlasting Snow Palace lives, isn't it? You're well informed. How could I not know? That so-called snowy mountain demon took over Yangyong with the backing of everlasting Snow Palace and walks around like he owns the world. A bit of an idiot, then? Well, not exactly wrong, is it? Nameless let out a soft chuckle. That idiot has about 3 other idiots working under him. He needs someone to train them. You seem perfect for the job. You want me to teach people. Reaching the 5 banners form means you're qualified to instruct martial artists. Ju Soa scratched her head. And how long would that take? It's not for life, is it? A generous year, that should be enough. All right, I'll do it. And don't head there right away. Erase all traces of this place as best you can and wait a day before going to the Yangyong branch. That's oddly specific. Nameless said nothing more. He simply turned his back and began to walk away. Ju Soa called out after him. What's your name? Nameless smiled faintly. You'll find out soon enough. One day. Exactly 1 day had passed since Unwise set off to enter the secret realm. He'll be all right, won't he? At Wanyang's quiet question, Chief Steward Seong simply nodded. He'll be fine. This isn't just anyone we're talking about. It's the young master. He didn't finish the sentence. Even though Wanyang belonged to Unwise, he had no intention of revealing the fact of his regression. In truth, he didn't want to tell anyone, not Wanyang, not anyone else. That was Unwise's greatest secret, his greatest weapon, and from a certain perspective, his greatest weakness. Chief Steward Seong ran a hand over his face and continued in a low voice. He's not someone who'd die so easily, so don't worry. You say that, but you're clearly worried too, sir. He couldn't deny it. Logically, it all made sense. The realm of absolute oneness, Hanwon Dokjan, was one of the highest possible levels. One could rival the very best of the martial world with that power. A realm so far beyond ordinary comprehension, it made eye contact with such beings unthinkable. Unwai had once stood at that peak. Even if his current body was now degraded to that of a mere child, it didn't change the fact that he had climbed that summit once. Most people couldn't understand it, but martial artists of that level, those who'd truly transcended, were fundamentally different from ordinary men. Their senses, for one, were unmatched. You could never reach that realm without having been born with such perception. When it came to sensing danger, evaluating risks, seeing 10 steps ahead, if Unwai judged that something was possible, then it was. Chief Steward Seong understood that in his mind, but he had watched Unwai since he was a baby, since he was just 1 year old. He had cared for him almost like a foster father. That feeling had never faded. By the way, sir, have you eaten anything? He shook his head and let out a long sigh, or tried to. Suddenly, Chief Steward Seong's eyes flared wide. His senses screamed at him. Someone had just crossed over the branch's outer wall. He turned sharply. Rage rose in his chest. He was already too worried about Unwai to eat or even drink, and now some filthy bastard thought it was a good time to sneak in and steal. Whoever it was, they were going to be beaten half to death. No, not half. He was going to kill them. Without a second thought, Chief Steward Seong shot toward the east wall of the branch, following his sharpened senses. He wasn't exaggerating. He reached the wall in the time it would take to blink twice. That was how fast he moved. And there, sprawled on the ground, was a man. He immediately began summoning his internal energy, ready to demand who he was, what kind of lunatic dared to trespass here, what he thought he was going to steal. His mind was overflowing with furious questions. But all of it froze. The intruder's face as he gasped for breath was unfamiliar, but the body shape was close. And then his features began to change. Slowly, ever so slowly, as if some kind of disguise technique was unraveling. Seong's jaw dropped. Young master. Kook, Chief Steward Seong. He rushed to Unwai's side and supported him. What the hell? What happened? Wait, hold on, is this? Even in that brief moment he held Unwai upright, Seong's refined senses couldn't help but detect it. The trace of demonic energy coiled in Unwai's bloodstream. We need to get you inside, now. Understood. Without wasting a second, he hoisted Unwai and carried him in. In just 2 swift strides, they reached the storage room at the far end of the compound. There, he laid Unwai down and pressed his fingers to his pulse. It wasn't just irregular, it was dangerous. And there was a vile, suffocating demonic aura laced into every beat of his veins. What he had sensed earlier had only been the tip of the iceberg. This, if it had been anyone else, their body would have exploded from the pressure alone. Did you learn White Snow Clear Meridian art? Of course I did. Then what are you waiting for, unless you're hoping to attend my funeral start? I already am. Seong wasn't an idiot. White Snow Clear Meridian art was the everlasting snow palace's meridian purifying technique. Originally developed to purge the blood qi used by members of the Central Blood Sect, it had evolved during its creation into a method that could even purge demonic energy. In today's martial world, possessing that technique alone would earn someone the respect reserved for the divine martial realm. From the moment he had touched Unwai's pulse, Chief Steward Seong had already been analyzing every meridian in his body. This is going to hurt. His hand on Unwai's wrist turned icy cold. His spirit ascension stage cultivation began flowing through Unwai's enlarged meridians. I've noticed it before, but your meridians really are thicker than most. Unwai didn't respond. Just a faint groan escaped his lips. And then, dark, oily demonic energy began to seep slowly out of his body. I'll finish it quickly. As soon as Unwai gave a small nod, a blinding white light burst from Chief Steward Seong's body. That light began shredding through every last trace of demonic energy within Unwai, and his groans grew louder by the second. Sweat gathered on Seong's brow. His eyes were razor-focused, his body perfectly still. Chief Steward Seong was no ordinary man. Juche, the head of the White Snow Phantom Corps, had once said that whatever task Seong undertook, he completed it perfectly, no matter what it was. That assessment wasn't wrong. His inner energy erupted in a controlled surge, and with it he purged even the last remnants of demonic energy coursing through Unwai's blood. Poes-Yusuk. A strange, almost hissing sound rang out. The swollen veins that had risen across Unwai's body began to settle, and his face returned to calm. Color returned to his cheeks. Who? It's done. I stared quietly as Chief Steward Seong withdrew his hand. The disguise had long since worn off. Thank you. No thanks needed, but what the hell happened? Do you want the long version or the short? Without waiting for an answer, Seong pulled out a pill from inside his robe. This was a precious elixir he'd always kept on hand in case of emergencies. Its name? Gongdawen. It was especially effective at restoring damaged meridians. The kind of medicine that would easily cost 1,000 taels of silver. Your body's in rough shape. You've got incredible recovery, but even so, you'll need at least a day of rest. Save the long version for later. Just give me the short of it. And take this. The short version, huh? Unwise skipped every detail and went straight to the core. I obtained the heavenly demon's martial art. The Gongdawen pill, halfway to Seong's mouth, slipped and dropped to the floor. Who? The martial art of one Gukshan, the last heavenly demon of the 1,000-year demonic sect. He was speechless. One Gukshan. The 1,000-year turmoil was officially remembered as a clash between the demonic sect and the martial alliance. But that was just the story people told. The real central figure was just one man, the ruler who had unified the entire martial world. The monster among monsters said to have lived for 1,000 years. The final heavenly demon, one Gukshan. Anything related to him appearing in the world would be enough to send the martial world into chaos. Let alone his martial art. Insanity. This was insane. No, not yet. Calm down. Why you? You eliminated all the witnesses, right? Of course you did. You would have. You must have. Right. Unwise shook his head, and Chief Steward Seong nearly collapsed from a spike in blood pressure. Ignoring him, Unwise picked up the Gongdawen from the ground. You sure I can still take this? You said there are witnesses. At this rate, we're all going to die. What's the point of taking medicine now? Then you take it. Seong let out a deep, exhausted sigh, took the pill, brushed the dust off it, and handed it back to him. Unwise smirked. Didn't you just say, what's the point of taking it? And now you're handing it back. Just take it. If you're going to become a vengeful ghost anyway, at least let it be a healthy-looking one. You're still young, after all. Gotta look your best. Chief Steward. Yes, young master, I have a plan. At those words, the color returned to Seong's face as if someone had flipped a switch. Of course you do. A man who reached absolute oneness. How could he not? I knew you had a plan that someone like me couldn't even begin to imagine. Unwise didn't bother replying. He tossed the pill into his mouth and muttered quietly. I'm thirsty. Hee, I'll bring you water right away. Chief Steward Seong really was easy to read. The next day, just past the start of the hour of the snake, 11 and 1 p.m., Ju Soa arrived at the Yangnyeong branch. Her face made it clear that she was very much not pleased to be here. She looked up at the main hall with a deep scowl. Seated in a tilted posture inside was a man. He's good-looking. She'd heard all descendants of the polar north had white hair, but this one had an unusual shade of ash gray. That must have made his childhood rough. That was about as far as her number NOVYLIGHT number interest went. She wasn't here for him. Sial Unwai, the snowy mountain demon, he looked at her and spoke. You're here for a job? Yes. That's a bit unexpected, she shrugged. Why unexpected? Usually in situations like this, the proper response is open arms and warm welcomes, isn't it? Sial Unwai let out a faint laugh. Bold, Jusoa blinked. That voice, his tone, it felt oddly familiar. No more than that. Wait, are you talking to me? Well, who else here would I be talking to? She glanced around the room. Standing beside Unwai was a man who looked to be in his late 30s. Near the entrance to the training grounds were 3 others. One large man with a hulking frame, another more compact but tightly built, and finally a short-haired woman with striking features. There's a handful of people around, sure, but I guess you really were talking to me. Makes it even more baffling. She meant it. Apparently, the bastard child of everlasting Snow Palace didn't quite grasp the gravity of the situation. Maybe he needed a bit of education. And by the way, even if you've got everlasting Snow Palace backing you, the 3 cities nearby aren't exactly safe playgrounds. Right in the middle of them is Shinsamgok, Shinsamwa's biggest cultivation zone. Not far from here, if you walk a bit, there's even a gold mine. I'm right, aren't I? You're more familiar with the geography here than I expected. How could I not be? No one really cared about Yangnyeong before. Out front you've got. What was it again? Sialep? Yeah, that place. Who in their right mind would come poking around where everlasting Snow Palace is staring you down? That's why some random martial artist at the 5 Banners Forum could dominate a whole city like Yangnyeong. Go on. But now the situation's changed. The other 3 cities are obviously going to get nervous, and of course they'll try to push back. And right now, I have to say, this isn't looking great. Jusoa's gaze slid toward the branch members. That pretty one's at dual light manifestation, the other 2. Well, they're bound to reach that level soon, but right now they're still stuck at root heaven stage. She let out a short, incredulous laugh. Don't tell me those 3 are all you've got. That's all of them. I see. That's really all of them. And over there we've got Yangyong's strongest man at Spirit Ascension stage. And our branch master in front of me sitting comfortably at 5 Dragon Blooming Star. Are you seriously planning to face the other 3 cities like this? You think we can't? If I were to apply basic logic and common sense, I'd say absolutely not. You don't even have to look far. The neighboring city of Bangni alone has more than 5 martial artists at 5 banners form and 1 at harmonization stage. In Jiakan, there are 2 harmonization experts and 1 at Spirit Ascension. Saryang's about the same as Bangni, but it doesn't stop there. Inside Shinsamgok, that's where Pimun is based. Honestly, this entire branch might as well be playing house. She crossed her arms and sighed inwardly. This man, Xiao Unwai, wasn't quite the person the rumors made him out to be. He seemed far more composed and grounded. But there was no mistaking it. His cultivation level was only 5 Dragon Blooming Star. And the branch. Just 3 members. Well, 4 if you counted Seong Yangho at Spirit Ascension stage. But ruling a region wasn't just about raw strength. You needed numbers, a presence, infrastructure, and this wasn't it. Ju Soa was a martial artist, yes, but also the master of the Killing Sword sect. If not for the fact that she owed Nameless her life, there was no way she'd be here, standing in this shaky branch, offering herself up like this. This place, just one hard wind and it might collapse, so what would it take to fix it? She spoke again. Someone like me could actually be useful. What Yangyong needs most are martial artists trained in the continuation realm. You need a solid spine before anything else. Give me a decent wage and I could stay for at least a year. Within that time, I could train at least 10 fighters at continuation realm. Maybe 20 more at New Mountain realm. What do you say? You have an unusual personality. Me? Don't you know yourself? I might come off a little arrogant, but isn't that just confidence? There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Unwise voice struck her ear with sudden clarity. Still, most of what you said is right. And more importantly, a martial artist at 5 banners form isn't easy to come by. You're hired. Perfect. Then let's get a contract, Dra. There happens to be an idiot serving as the sub-branch lord. What? And under him are 3 even bigger idiots. Your job is to teach those idiots. Jusoa's arms dropped, her eyes widened. Why was he saying those exact words? She hadn't stopped thinking about it. The man who saved her life in the secret realm, his words, his voice. His presence, his movements, everything about him was still carved in her memory. Unwise spoke. Chief Steward Seong. Yes, young master. Show her to her quarters. Explain the layout as well. Yes, understood. As Unwise rose from the main hall and turned away, he paused mid-step. He glanced over his shoulder. You're still curious, aren't you? About what? My name. Ah, the memory rushed back. What's your name? She had asked that, and he had answered, you'll find out soon enough, and now, she had. Jusoa stood frozen, lips parting like a fish. If you don't have more questions, go get to work. Unwise turned his back and walked away. And behind him, Jusoa slowly, quietly began to smile. So it was you. It had been a while since his thoughts ran this deep. He'd been trying his best to maintain composure. Raising his cultivation realm was, without a doubt, the top priority, but impatience would only lead to disaster. He had to ascend steadily, step by step, with certainty. The condition afflicting him, mad blood veins, was undeniably a great aid to a martial artist, but the side effects weren't small by any means. Whenever one reached a new realm, there was a period of mandatory adaptation. Skipping that adaptation, as history had shown, meant the bloodline would erupt, and he would die. He raised a hand to his forehead. Fragments of information he'd recently acquired began reassembling in his mind. Some pieces connected, others did not. In his past life, there were many things he found strange, but he never had the chance to investigate them in detail. He'd been too busy surviving, and there was never just 1 or 2 things demanding his attention. Even when he destroyed the everlasting Snow Palace, he had left behind his regular duties and moved alone. That incident had earned him both rebuke and punishment from the Celestial Envoy. He had gathered what little information he could in a short span of time and sifted out only the most plausible bits. That was the limit. After all, he had responsibilities. He held an official title. He had things to do. Since returning to the past, his first priority had been to fill the gaps in his knowledge using what he remembered from his previous life. But everything he'd assumed, every theory he'd built, had collapsed the moment he met Jiang Muhyun. and obtained the Heavenly Demon's martial arts manual. What he told the boy hadn't been an exaggeration. He truly had learned a great deal. Now all that remained was to verify it, but his current level wasn't nearly enough. Still holding his head, he sank deeper into thought. Moments from the past brushed by. Countless people had begged for their lives, and he had cut their throats without hesitation. Those who tried to stop him died. Those who resisted died. He killed and killed again. There was no regret. It had been necessary. If he hadn't done it, tens of times more would have died instead. There was no guilt, but it struck him that all of it might soon repeat. He needed to prepare. "Are you all right?" The voice snapped him from his thoughts. He lowered his arm. Ju Soa stood nearby, and beside her was Chief Steward Seong Yangho. He glanced up at the sky. The sun was just about to set. It seemed at least 2 hours had passed. "Did you get the full tour?" "I did." "Then what are you doing here?" "Go do your job." Ju Soa scratched the back of her head. "Before I started, I was curious about something." "What are you so curious about?" Without hesitation, she asked. "What the hell is going on here?" His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? I really don't understand." "Understand what exactly?" "I just came back from checking out the recruits from the subsidiary branch. None of them seem ordinary." "Is that so?" "Yes. Especially that one called Wanyang. She practically glows. She's already at the dual light manifestation stage, and from what I saw, she's not far from breaking through to 5 Dragon Blooming Star." "And the other two?" "They're unusual too. I sparred with them just now. That kid Chenpeng, he's huge but surprisingly agile. Sharp instincts, quick judgment. And the one called Han Murin? I don't know what kind of strange martial art he learned as a kid, but his level doesn't make any sense. His swordplay is downright unorthodox. He tries to hide it, but the killing intent is overflowing. If he doesn't rein that in, people will start calling him a demonic cultivator before long." He let out a faint laugh. "You're more earnest about your work than I thought." "Come on, I told you already. I'm a martial artist, and I'm not someone who forgets a debt. If I'm going to repay a debt, I have to do it properly. Otherwise, I'd be no better than a fraud." He didn't mind that. "Also, what exactly are you?" "You mean me?" "Yes, from what I can tell, you're definitely at the 5 Dragon Blooming Star stage, but that's not all. The way you handled the demonic energy in the secret realm. There's no way a cultivator at the Heaven and Earth Death stage could do that. It was something only someone at the level of Heaven and Earth Life or higher should be able to pull off." "How is that possible?" He said nothing. "I don't know who or what you really are." "Are you some ancient master reborn into youth?" She watched him chuckle quietly, then continued. "The original Sial Unwai. He died, didn't he, and now you're just wearing his face. If that were true, I wouldn't have left you alive. Are you going to kill me now?" He shook his head. "If I were going to kill you, I wouldn't have saved you in the first place." "Is that so?" Ju Soa smiled faintly. "What you got in that secret realm? It was the Heavenly Demon's martial art, wasn't it?" The chief steward beside her instantly turned cold. From the look in his eyes, all it would take was one command, and he'd strike her down right here. But his gaze remained fixed on Ju Soa. This woman, she might be more useful than expected. "Isn't that why you're keeping me close, to keep me quiet? And yet you still came here knowing that? I owe you my life." "I see. I thought that must have been the reason, but now that I see it up close, I'm not so sure. That guardian next to you looks like he wants to kill me right now. The killing intent is honestly electric, so why am I still alive?" "At first it was interest. Now it's curiosity. So you're not planning to boil me alive later or anything, right?" He burst into laughter. "How old are you?" 28. "Then you've been through a lot in the martial world already." "Oh, definitely. I've been cast aside like a worn-out hunting dog a few times too. Do I look like that kind of person? You never know with people. Then let me make this clear." His tone turned sharp. "In my entire life, I have never once taken someone under my command just to use them as a disposable hound. And I never will." Ju Soa scratched her head again. "Well, all right. I mean, it's not like I have a choice. I already owe you my life, and now we're in the same boat. And you are giving me a chance, right? You could say that. So all I have to do is train those 3? For now. Then. Is there anything I should refer to?" At Ju Soa's words, Unwise gaze softened. "Chenpeng is 24. He's a massive man, but his heart is gentler and kinder than anyone's. There was a time he killed the traitors who betrayed the subsidiary branch. But afterward, he stayed behind at the training grounds and held a funeral for them alone. His generosity runs deep, and behind it lies a profound sense of responsibility. He has the qualities to stand in as branch lord if I'm ever absent." He paused for a moment, then continued. "Wanyang, she's fast. Agile, her senses are unusually sharp, and those instincts shine most in sudden, chaotic situations. She can read the flow and adapt quicker than anyone I've seen, and her talent for martial arts, that goes without saying. A faint smile tugged at Unwise lips. Han Murin is a bit more complicated. His family was slaughtered under false charges of treason. He was the only one left. The killing intent he exudes is raw and untamed, like boiling magma, unstable and dangerous. That kind of energy could easily consume him. But inside that savagery is a genuine burning passion. Passion? She echoed. He's consumed by vengeance, but that's not all. He's meticulous, never forgets what must be done. By most standards, his talent would be called genius. But right now, he's walking a razor's edge. If he can't tame that rage, it'll devour him eventually. However, if he overcomes it, Han Murin will be a martial artist whose name echoes across the martial world. Ju Soa listened in silence, absorbing every word. Then quietly she spoke. You care about them a lot. I should, Unwai said simply. They're mine. Something about the way he said it made her fall silent again. Then Unwai added, and I'm curious about you as well. Why? His gaze deepened. Because you may also become one of mine. Ju Soa's eyes widened. There was no calculation in his voice. No sugar-coated deception, just a genuine will to cherish and protect the people he claimed as his own. She let out a dry chuckle. Says who? No one can say for sure. Ju Soa didn't argue further. Unwai tossed her a scroll. She caught it and tilted her head. What is this? The Heaven-Slaying Wolf Star Formula and the Heavenly Mind Technique. I've heard of the Heaven-Slaying Wolf Star Formula. Isn't that Han Chial's martial art? It is. And the Heavenly Mind Technique. That one I created. Don't joke. Do I look like I'm joking? You're telling me you created a technique. Someone at the 5-Dragon Blooming Star stage. I don't feel the need to explain. Read it, then use it as a reference to guide the others. Fine, I'll take a look. Turning away, Ju Soa opened the scroll. She began reading as she walked, but as soon as she reached the first page of the Heavenly Mind Technique, she stopped dead in her tracks. What is this? You really made this. You, not you. Address me properly. Whatever you are, what is this, really? To the average martial artist in the branch, it would have just seemed like some impressive technique. But someone at the level of Chief Steward Seong Yangho had already sensed it. The Heavenly Mind Technique wasn't just high-grade. It was one of the most refined mental cultivation methods, even among heaven and earth class techniques. And Ju Soa was no fool. Her arm trembled slightly. Creating a technique like this is one thing, but why give it to me? I already told you you may become one of mine. Let me be clear, just in case you are allowed to learn it. You're serious. For the next year, you'll serve in this branch as the acting vice branch lord. Understood? Yes. Then NOVL Yota GHT, read the full story, go. As Ju Soa departed, Chief Steward Seong Yangho stepped forward. They say heroes always draw women to them. Young lord, are you perhaps a hero? Ha ha ha. Unwai ignored the jab and asked, what about the documents I mentioned? Ah, those, I was just waiting for you to ask. With practiced ease, Seong Yangho pulled out a roll of parchment from his robe, clearly something he'd kept ready. Before entering the secret realm, Unwai had been visited by representatives of the Shinsamgok Merchant League. They had used the name of the everlasting Snow Palace and promised a monthly tribute of 600 pounds of Shinsamwa. What Unwai wanted to know was why. Why did they need the name of the palace? It meant only one thing: someone was watching Shinsamgok closely, waiting for a chance to seize it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have approached first. The documents Seong Yangho handed over contained detailed information about Shinsamgok and reports on the gold mine located between Bongni and Yangyong. After reading through everything, Unwai let out a soft laugh. At this point, it felt like fate was drawing the lines. There are several merchant coalitions active in the Central Plains. One of them has been pressuring Shinsamgok. The gold mine is already in their hands. So it was true. Tianlin? Yes, Tianlin. Since we're on the subject, I've heard rumors there's a black market operated by Tianlin near Chengsu village. Is that true? Chief Steward Seong flinched. The proper name for Yangyong was Yangyong County. When the previous county magistrate held office, he didn't govern just Yangyong itself. He oversaw all the surrounding villages that fell within its jurisdiction. There were 4 villages encircling Yangyong: Chengsu Village, Unam Hamlet, Bikun Town, and Jukrim Town. The magistrate's duties were to collect taxes, maintain order, and resolve disputes in these places. The former magistrate hadn't done any of that, but Unwai would. He intended to do it all. I asked if it's true. If you're asking whether Tianlin runs a black market there, yes, it's true. Chief Steward Seong sighed heavily as he looked at Unwai's faint smile. Please, I'm begging you. Don't get involved in that mess. Unwai didn't answer. Right now, he was the white stone on the board. Someone had just placed a black one. It was his turn to move. Chengsu Village. It was, quite literally, the backwater of all backwaters. Yet even so, twice a month this little village was swarmed with people. The reason was simple. A black market was held here. Tianlin, with its reach spread across the entire Central Plains, operated these covert markets to peddle all sorts of goods. The landmass of the Central Plains was unimaginably vast, so they had set up dozens of black markets across the continent. Chengsu Village was one of them. At its center sat Yu Hanrim, head of Tianlin's Chengsu branch, lounging in the front hall, taking a long drag from an expensive pipe filled with high-grade shinsamwa and sighing deeply. Can't even enjoy this shinsam pipe anymore without regret. And who could blame him? He'd recently received a missive from Tianlin's central headquarters. The contents were blunt. All trade with Shinsamgok had been terminated. The involvement of Everlasting Snow Palace in Shinsamgok affairs had made any future attempts impossible. A devastating and utterly infuriating blow. It all started when that bastard Seong Yangho, illegitimate son or not, swallowed up Yangnyeong whole. Everything had gone sideways from that moment on. Should I have stopped him? Tianlin's position was absolute. They held immense wealth, and that wealth allowed them to recruit martial artists of overwhelming strength. More than anything, they had deep ties to countless major martial factions. If they'd wanted to stop him, they could have. But who could have predicted it? Who would have thought that a man like Seong Yangho, scorned as a mere illegitimate child, would seize control of Yangnyeong on his own? Fools outside whispered nonsense about how Everlasting Snow Palace had backed him. But Tianlin understood what lay beneath the surface. And surely he's not dredging up that incident from back then. It had happened exactly 6 years ago, around this time. Han Jiangwang of the now-defunct Ghost Blade sect had approached him back then. He'd offered a tempting proposal to split the profits of the mines. If it had been just one mine, NOVL Yota GHT, read the full story, he might have declined. But there were 2 mines yielding Hwanrung Jade essence. The Xiaohan mine and the Chengnung mine. As a merchant, it was an irresistible offer, so he agreed. Tianlin provided warriors and workers, blocked off all access to Xialap, and transported the ores non-stop. But honestly, the numbers didn't add up. More importantly, even if Seong Yangho had been born out of wedlock, he was still a direct descendant of Everlasting Snow Palace. Whether from Yu Hanrim's perspective or Tianlin's, interfering with that palace in any way was not something to take lightly. If things went wrong, they'd be the ones left holding the bag, so they had pulled out. Since then, they had kept a firm distance from Yangnyeong, but lately something felt off. For some reason, Everlasting Snow Palace was getting involved again. He clicked his tongue inwardly, and then, kaboom! The front gate exploded and Yu Hanrim jumped to his feet. This was Tianlin territory. Who the hell would be insane enough to raid a Tianlin branch? His thoughts froze. 5 figures, 3 men, 2 women stepped through the broken entrance, and one of the men was unmistakable, ash-gray hair, sharp eyes. He wasn't wearing the famed white tiger thousand robe, but Yu Hanrim would never forget that face. It was the very man he'd just been grinding his teeth over. Seong Yangho. The moment the 5 entered, Tianlin's guards began to draw their weapons, but Yu Hanrim raised a hand. Lower your swords. These are guests. He walked forward slowly. Up close, Unwai's face looked incredibly young, and this kid lived as a puppet for 6 years. Either he was hiding something truly deep, or he was insane, or he had something solid backing him. It had to be one of the 3. Suppressing a sigh, Yu Hanrim spoke. What brings the illustrious branch lord of Yangnyeong to a humble place like this? And his eyes trailed to the ruined front gate. It had been obliterated. Restoring it would cost a small fortune. Amidst the debris, 2 unconscious guards lay sprawled. They didn't look dead, but definitely out cold. Your greeting is quite overwhelming. You seem to know me well. How could I not? And yet I don't know you. A wry smile played on Unwai's lips. I'm Yu Hanrim, branch head of Tianlin's Chengsu Village Division. And the man beside me is our assigned escort from the main headquarters. He's known across the land by the epithet Dragon of the Furious Sea, Lord Tak Juk. His cultivation was at the 5 banners form level. At his side stood 2 warriors who had reached 3 flowers gathering purity, 3 at dual light manifestation, and nearly 10 at the root heaven stage. But Unwai didn't ask about them, and Yu Hanrim didn't bother with introductions. That's enough, I came because I have a question. And what question justifies such an aggressive? Who gave you permission to operate a black market in my territory? The words hit like a hammer. Tianlin. Who in their right mind would dare claim Tianlin needed permission from anyone? It's been over 10 days since Yangyong changed hands, and not a single greeting came from you. Is this how Tianlin runs its branches? Yu Hanrim scratched his head. He could now clearly see what this brat was aiming at. From the way things were unfolding, it was evident that Tianlin was deeply tied to the restoration of the heavenly demon cult. But frankly speaking, Unwai didn't care whether they succeeded or failed. He had no intention of interfering, nor of lending a hand. Even if they had hidden the existence of the secret realm that appeared in Yangyong long ago and slaughtered anyone who got too close to it, strictly speaking, it was none of his business. Dragging up that incident now would be nothing but petty vengeance, and Unwai had no interest in playing petty games. However, Chengsu village now fell under his jurisdiction. Even if Tianlin had run a black market here for years, siphoning off every coin of profit for themselves. Even if they hadn't handed over a single coin to former magistrate Jiang Mugi, that era was over. Yu Hanrim slowly ran a hand down his face and finally spoke. We didn't come to pay respects because, frankly, we saw no reason to. And to be clear, we've had roots in Chengsu village for a long time. Coming after us now, it's a bit much, branch lord. Unwai shook his head. I think you're mistaken. It's not me who's in trouble, it's you. Excuse me? I'm now the master of Yangyong. Chengsu village is under my rule. Nothing in my jurisdiction is allowed to operate without my knowledge. Heh. Especially organizations like yours, which rely on borrowed land for commerce. Shouldn't you be offering at least a share of your profits in tribute? Yu Hanrim let out a hollow laugh. You really are something, branch lord. I've been hearing that a lot lately. Am I really that amusing? Oh yes, the way you're playing the part of a local magistrate, it's honestly hilarious. Unwai laughed. You can see my intentions, can you? Clear as day. Then let's hear them. It's not complicated, tribute is just an excuse. What you're really after is merit. Merit, we know. You took over Yangyong without any help from everlasting Snow Palace, by your own power. Surprising. He'd expected Yu Hanrim to be duller than this, but perhaps he had some brains after all. But the world doesn't care about that, do they? You've already been branded with the title Demon Lord of the Snowy Peaks. That says everything. Go on. If you extract tribute from Tianlin here in Yangyong, that alone becomes a public victory. And with that, your standing within everlasting Snow Palace will rise. My standing, huh? Yes, there are people within the palace who know the rumors floating outside are false, and those who don't. By using Tianlin like this, you're sending a message to both. There's no way we wouldn't see through that. A shame, truly a shame, because he was only partially right. But Unwai didn't bother correcting him. There was no need. You can justify it however you want, that's your right, but I'm not here to convince you, I won't explain myself. Maybe so, but you still need to convince me. And why's that? Because unless you persuade me. Why should I play along? Unwai's smile vanished. Play along, convince me. The thinly veiled disdain in Yu Hanrim's tone was beginning to test his patience, but for now he let it slide. As I said, I'm not here to convince you. If persuasion's what you're after, persuade yourself. You're rather bold, branch lord. Unwai's brow twitched faintly. Still, he held his temper, for now they were still talking. From this point forward, you'll pay me 30% of the black market's profits. And if I refuse, then it'll be your turn to convince me. Yu Hanrim gave a smug chuckle. Our presence here brings people into Yangyong. They come, they spend money. That creates a flow, an economy. In short, you need us. We make Yangyong work, branch lord. So, if anything, we should be the ones getting paid. You think Tianlin deserves tribute. What a disappointment your organization has become. What do you mean by that? There are two mines between Yangyong and Sialap. I own them both now, but that wasn't always the case. When the four great sects of Yangyong and Magistrate Jiang Mugi seized ownership, there was one group that played a central role. That group was Tianlin. You walked away with 800 silver taels, not much, but it was still payment for services rendered. You said the records held proof. Was that part of it? Are you denying it? I'm neither confirming nor denying, but if Tianlin really had such a crucial role in seizing those mines, how could our share be as low as 800 silver? Yu Hanrim. Yes, let's stop pretending we don't know what we both know. I believe not recognizing a favor as a favor is the same as showing your true colors. My proposal is simple. I'll bury the matter from 6 years ago and allow the black market in Chengsu village to continue. In exchange, you'll give me 30% of the profits. Yu Hanrim, who had been staring at me, let out a small chuckle. I can't agree to that. Can't? I asked. Yes. Do you even know how much the profits from this black market are? How can 800 silver taels turn into thousands, even tens of thousands? At this, I couldn't help but laugh. Don't merchants know that? What do you mean? The value of goods is not determined by the buyer, but by the seller. That 800 silver taels over the course of 6 years will transform however I choose. And unfortunately, time doesn't run on a set price. You can't do it, so it's not happening. We have no ties to everlasting Snow Palace, and we have no intention of sharing any profits, not a single coin. I closed my mouth. His boldness meant there was more behind this than just a simple refusal. I had an idea of what it might be. So, Shinsamgak has been tempting you, huh? Did the higher-ups order you to distance yourselves from everlasting Snow Palace? Yu Hanrim shrugged his shoulders. That was as good as a confirmation. This was enough. You were just a discarded pawn. At that, Yu Hanrim furrowed his brow. A discarded pawn? Are you talking about me? The group that helped the 4 great sects of Yangyong seize those mines, it was you, wasn't it? I won't answer that. I smiled faintly. So it was a gift. You keep saying strange things. Leave now, and don't ever ask us for tribute again. Ask for tribute. Is that what you call it? You build and profit off land I control without paying a single tax, and yet you talk about asking. Such determination to remain so certain. Yes, we're certain. But do you know something? What's that? Whether or not you distance yourselves from everlasting Snow Palace, that's no longer important. What do you mean by that? Everyone knows you're blood-related to everlasting Snow Palace, Branch Lord. You're not dealing with everlasting Snow Palace. You're dealing with me, Seong Yangho. What? And just out of curiosity, if I kill you, who will come after me? Don't know. Please. Don't. We're Tianlin. No matter what, even if it's everlasting Snow Palace. You don't just touch Tianlin. I reached out and grabbed Yu Hanrim's neck. Didn't I tell you you're not up against everlasting Snow Palace? You're up against me, Seong Yangho. I tightened my grip. Consider this a request. I'd like you to become a ghost. I was completely serious. Become a ghost and watch how Tianlin fares from now on. Let go, let go. If you cut ties with Tianlin, things will get difficult for you. I tightened my grip even further. Crack. His neck snapped. After tossing his body aside, I spoke briefly. Kill them all. Understood. With that, the 3 men, excluding Jusoa, charged forward, and in an instant, the air was thick with blood. Jusoa stared at me in disbelief. What's going on? You're not going to kill them. You're really doing this with a clear mind. Do I look crazy to you? Tianlin, you're going to touch Tianlin. I spoke briefly. This is the martial world. A martial artist fights with more than just words. Jusoa swallowed nervously. This man, he might truly be insane. Do it quickly and go finish them off. Yes. Jusoa drew her sword and started toward Tak Juk, but I stopped her with a short command. No, pardon, not him. I turned my gaze to Tak Juk. He didn't even flinch when Yu Hanrim died, and despite the warriors of Root Heaven's stage being killed one by one, he made no move. His eyes were fixed on me. I'll take care of him. But he's at the 5 banners form. So, take care of the 3 flowers gathering purity warriors. This is madness. Go, Jusoa sighed, but reluctantly began walking toward the others. I think not recognizing a favor for what it is like /NOVELIGHT/ showing your true colors. My proposal is simple. I'll bury the events from 6 years ago and turn a blind eye to the black market operating here in Chengsu village. In return, you'll give me 30% of the profits. Yu Hanrim, who had been looking at me, let out a small laugh. I can't agree to that. Can't? I asked. Yes. Do you even know how much profit the black market here makes? How can 800 silver taels turn into thousands, even tens of thousands? At that, I couldn't help but laugh. Don't merchants know that? What do you mean? The value of goods is not determined by the buyer, but by the seller. Those 800 silver taels over the course of 6 years will transform however I choose. Unfortunately, time doesn't run on a set price. You can't do it, so it's not happening. We have no ties to everlasting Snow Palace, and we have no intention of sharing any profits, not a single coin. I closed my mouth. His boldness meant there was more behind this than just a simple refusal. I had a hunch of what it might be. So, Shinsamgak has been tempting you, huh? Did the higher-ups order you to distance yourselves from everlasting Snow Palace? Yu Hanrim shrugged his shoulders. That was as good as a confirmation. This was enough. You were just a discarded pawn. At that, Yu Hanrim furrowed his brow. A discarded pawn, are you talking about me? The group that helped the four great sects of Yangyong seize those mines, it was you, wasn't it? I won't answer that. I smiled faintly. So it was a gift. You keep saying strange things, leave now, and don't ever ask us for tribute again. Ask for tribute. Is that what you call it? You build and profit off land I control without paying a single tax, and yet you talk about asking. Such determination to remain so certain. Yes, we're certain. But do you know something? What's that? Whether or not you distance yourselves from everlasting Snow Palace, that's no longer important. What do you mean by that? Everyone knows you're blood-related to everlasting Snow Palace, Branch Lord. You're not dealing with everlasting Snow Palace. You're dealing with me, Sial Unwai. What? And just out of curiosity, if I kill you, who will come after me? Don't know. Please. Don't, we're Tianlin. No matter what, even if it's everlasting Snow Palace. You don't just touch Tianlin. I reached out and grabbed Yu Hanrim's neck. Didn't I tell you you're not up against everlasting Snow Palace? You're up against me, Sial Unwai. I tightened my grip. Consider this a request. I'd like you to become a ghost. I was completely serious. Become a ghost and watch how Tianlin fares from now on. Let go, let go. If you cut ties with Tianlin, things will get difficult for you. I tightened my grip even further. Crack. His neck snapped. After tossing his body aside, I spoke briefly. Kill them all. Understood. With that, the three men, excluding Jusoa, charged forward, and in an instant, the air was thick with blood. Jusoa stared at me in disbelief. What's going on? You're not going to kill them. You're really doing this with a clear mind. Do I look crazy to you? Tianlin, you're going to touch Tianlin, I spoke briefly. This is the martial world. A martial artist fights with more than just words. Jusoa swallowed nervously. This man, he might truly be insane. Do it quickly and go finish them off. Yes. Jusoa drew her sword and started toward Tak Juk, but I stopped her with a short command. No, pardon, not him. I turned my gaze to Tak Juk. He didn't even flinch when Yu Hanrim died, and despite the warriors of Root Heaven's stage being killed one by one, he made no move. His eyes were fixed on me. I'll take care of him. But he's at the 5 banners form. So, take care of the 3 flowers gathering purity warriors. This is madness. Go, Jusoa sighed, but reluctantly began walking toward the others. Kugyukung, the ground trembled, and the energy surrounding Takjuk's physical form began to distort. Even to the naked eye, it was clear. This was no ordinary formation technique like the one seen in the 5 banners form. As I had sensed earlier, Takjuk was just a step away from reaching the harmonization stage. There was no doubt about it. Unwai tightened his grip on his focus. Takjuk's gaze elongated. His spear, which had stretched like a beam of light, split into 7 jagged branches in the air and surged upwards like a dragon's roar. Dragon King's heavenly strong spear. The sound of steel clashing, the air splitting. For the briefest moment, Unwai's robe tore and a sword light flashed. It struck precisely between the gaps of the 7 spearheads, and from there an explosion of light erupted. A crescent-shaped wave of energy expanded outward, devastating everything in its path. The 2 men did not stop. The red-hot spear swung horizontally, but before the full force of it could be delivered, Unwai's sword struck the shaft of the spear. Keying, Takjuk's eyes grew deep. As Takjuk's spear shaft bent and screamed, Unwai's blade cut through the air. Takjuk's spearhead sliced across Unwai's right shoulder, and Unwai's sword cleaved Takjuk's left side. Cough, Takjuk gritted his teeth. It was clear he had tried to control his strength. He had no intention of killing, but he also had no intention of backing down, yet now they were fighting almost evenly. Was this even possible? This outcome was not what he had imagined. What kind of bastard was this? Was he really some kind of monster? Such a monster existed in the snow-covered mountains? Even now, he was this powerful. How would he be in the future? Takjuk could not even imagine it. His inner power concentrated towards the spear's tip, the most critical moment in the cycle of his cultivation. It was time to unleash it. He stretched out. The spear's light, which had been drawing the shape of a dragon, instantly split into dozens of fragments, each transforming into a separate dragon. See Dragon's heavenly roar. The momentum was fierce. The killing intent was palpable. However, facing this, Unwai's gaze was pure calm. In that fleeting moment, his eyes were dyed with white snow. Heavenly snow dominion, within 5 feet. Every bit of energy within exactly 5 feet of him fell under his control. With a sizzling sound, the dozens of dragons that had been surging forward began to freeze from head to tail. Soon, everything stopped. Wow! Someone gasped. All the battles happening around them had NOVYLIGHT halted. Everyone held their breath as they gazed upon the absolute domain that Unwai had created, and Takjuk was no exception. A look of awe passed across his face. This was the final strike that had been unleashed with no mercy, yet he had never imagined it would be subdued so perfectly. He truly did not expect it to be neutralized like this. Takjuk was flustered. That was why he froze, unable to respond quickly enough. Shitting. The sound of air being sliced filled the space as Takjuk drew upon all his inner energy and hurled himself backward. Unfortunately, it was not a calculated maneuver, but rather a desperate struggle. Lazy donkeys roll. Takjuk rolled back, and as soon as he sprang to his feet, blood erupted from his chest. Just a little more. If he had been even slightly slower, his upper body would have been split in half. It was absurd. You, what the hell are you? Unwai silently lowered his sword, staring at Takjuk. All of Tianlin's martial artists except Takjuk had died. The situation was already over. Unwai spoke. Is this enough to save face? Are you planning to end it here? Wasn't it you who said you'd control your strength? Why? Do you still want to keep going? Takjuk gritted his teeth. How should he explain this? Was his blood boiling? He wanted to see the end. He wanted to see this man's limit, and he wanted to see the end of this fight. There was no other reason, simply because he was a martial artist. His heart was pushing him forward, but his mind wasn't. His mind kept telling him to stop, and in fact, that was the right choice. Seeing the confusion on Takjuk's face, Unwai sheathed his sword and spoke briefly. Is Guanghen still searching for the divine spear? Takjuk's mouth fell open at those words. You, how do you know? Guanghen, the rogue searching for the divine spear. The current level of Takjuk's cultivation placed him at the first stage of the 5 martial spheres, heavenly unity. And in the distant future, he would reach grand void form. Takjuk, speak. You owe me your life today. The outcome hasn't been decided yet. How can you claim I owe you my life? You really don't know. If you don't know, there's no reason for you and I to speak anymore. No, a cold smile appeared on Unwai's lips. To be exact, there's no value in continuing this conversation. As a martial artist, I'll ask you, do you really think you don't owe me your life? Takjuk furrowed his brows deeply. He couldn't deny it. If they had continued, Takjuk would have died. He knew this better than anyone. The reason was simple. Takjuk had questions about Unwai's movements, his swordsmanship, and everything, but Unwai had no such doubts. For someone who could understand, analyze, and act, that was the decisive factor in determining victory or defeat. The debt you owe today, you'll repay yourself later. When the time comes, tell your master. If you want to find the divine spear, come to me first. How much do you know about the divine spear? Everything. That's all you need to know. Unwai turned his body around. As he did, Takjuk's voice came from behind. Tianlin will not sit idly by. Unwai turned his head. So, I think I understand the confidence you have, but will it really be enough? Already planning to repay me for my favor? Takjuk opened and closed his mouth. Wow, so you're quick on the uptake, huh? Definitely the kind of guy who should never be made an enemy. Now you know. Anything else to say? After thinking for a moment, Takjuk shook his head. Go. We still have work to do here. Scratching his head, Takjuk moved toward the front gate. Just before fully exiting, he turned his head for a moment. The destroyed Tianlin Qing Shuchan branch was in sight. The branch leader's neck was twisted grotesquely, and the others were either cut, torn, or killed in some way. He wondered why Ju Soa followed them, and what drove those below her to blindly wield swords. It was complicated. Did they know who they were provoking? No, they probably did. If they did, it meant they had someone they trusted. Above all, Sial Unwai. How did he know that Guanghen was searching for the divine spear, and was it true that he knew everything? Nothing was certain, but one thing was clear. He should never be made an enemy. A relentless bastard. Ju Soa stood frozen in a daze. Her first thought was admiration. The everlasting snow palace completely dominated the north, and its power was equivalent to that of a nation, all thanks to the palace lord, the Bingsu Jizun Sial Yongchen, a man who had reached the 4th stage of the 5 martial spheres and was expected to soon ascend to the final stage. That was why the everlasting snow palace could enjoy its current power. No one would dare challenge such a giant of the north without losing their mind. But she didn't expect this level of power. Was the palace lord's martial arts this strong? This was utterly unbelievable. Ju Soa had never heard of nor seen such a phenomenon before. An opponent's attack, an expert using the 5 banners form's complete techniques, being frozen completely in midair. She was both shocked and shocked again. Sial Unwai. What kind of person was that? Could such an untrained martial artist really comprehend this level of technique from the five-dragon blooming star, let alone display it? If people in the martial world heard about this, they would scoff. Then they would probably slap her across the face and tell her such nonsense was impossible, no matter how much of a genius someone was. A man who defied common sense. This was how Ju Soa began to remember Seong Yangho. Her second thought was more pragmatic. I should start preparing for a grave. She was the only one who seemed to have any inkling of what this insane man had just done. The others were clueless. What kind of group was Tianlin? To explain them, she would need to go into the black market. The black market sells things that are difficult to trade openly. Naturally, they are illegal, but Tianlin operates them everywhere in the Central Plains. As of now, Tianlin runs at least 50 black market operations. While they earn vast amounts of money, how much influence do they have to make it possible? They must have connections to the nation, key members of the Martial Alliance, and powerful individuals in the martial world. Without those, operating a black market is impossible. That's how the martial world works. But challenging Tianlin meant severing ties with all of their connections. What would Tianlin think of this situation? They could spread rumors that the everlasting Snow Palace had crossed the line, or that they were greedily hoarding Tianlin's funds. The everlasting Snow Palace would be the one to suffer. While Ju Soa thought about this, Yangho spoke. You seem to be deep in thought. Oh, does it look that way? It does to me. As I mentioned earlier, you're fully aware of what you've done to Tianlin, right? Yangho chuckled. Is Tianlin that scary? Not scary, but you know how great their influence is. It wasn't surprising. Yangho knew very well how powerful Tianlin was. So you want to leave? Ju Soa shook her head. Then it's settled. Yangho, looking around at the others, spoke in a quiet voice. From now on, you will find a space isolated from the outside. What? No questions. Listen carefully. First, the location should be somewhere easily accessible but not crowded. Second, check the walls and floor of the storage. Especially look behind heavy furniture or piles of goods. Yangho was completely serious now. They usually hide entrances with things like that. Tap the floor and check if any bricks are different. And third, check the accounting room or the storage manager's quarters. They often hide devices in such places. Yangho paused for a moment to look up at the sky. You have half an hour, go search. Yes, everyone scattered to begin their search exactly half an hour later. We found it. It was Wanyang. As Yangho had instructed, Wanyang conducted the search, focusing especially behind heavy furniture and piles of baggage, and that was how she discovered it. The place they were in now was the branch lord's residence. Wanyang began by examining the stacks of documents on the bookshelf. If they were ledgers, she thought they might be of use to Yangho somehow, so she planned to set them aside. But as she pushed them away, she saw it. Traces that the bookshelf had been moved frequently. So she pushed the shelf aside and knocked on the wall. That was when she became certain. There was an empty space within. When she kicked the wall with her foot, a staircase leading underground appeared. Just as Yangho had said, there was a secret chamber. Wanyang turned to look at Yangho with an expression full of smug pride, and Yangho gave her a pat on the shoulder as if to say, well done. Now with her head held even higher, Wanyang looked toward Ju Soa. It wasn't a look that seemed to ask for praise. Ju Soa was somewhat dumbfounded. Hey, don't you think you're a little too smug just for finding one thing? Well, unlike you, I actually found something. You should have found it yourself if you're so bothered. Ju Soa let out a hollow laugh. Why was she always so abrasive? She hadn't seemed like that kind of person before. Enough, keep it in check and follow me. Yangho began descending the stairs first, and the branch members followed right behind. They had to descend for quite a while. Judging by the depth, it was at least 100 jang from the surface. Once they reached the bottom, Yangho's brow slightly furrowed. It was a vast, cavernous space. A faint purple light from the demonized stone dimly illuminated the underground chamber, and in its center were a few small piles of ashes. Something was off, truly off. First, it was strange that the space was so completely empty. And second, it was strange that it was so clean. Someone definitely did something here. Ju Soa murmured quietly, and Yangho asked her, do you have any guesses? Not a clue. Letting out a sigh, Yangho silently walked toward the center. No one here knew, so he would have to uncover it himself. He began carefully examining the ground. There were traces of something having been drawn, constructed, then erased. But what exactly it had been, he couldn't say for sure. Even trying to infer it from the residual energies didn't yield anything certain. I'll have to extract it. Yangho extended both arms. Soon, his hyonjigi began to spread like mist, slowly filling the space. As the initially colorless mist passed over certain areas, it gradually began to change color. As if waiting for this moment, Unwise swiftly stirred his fingers, extracting the discolored sections. As if scattered fragments were being drawn back together, the discolored energies began forming shapes in midair. Wow! The gasp came from Chenpeng. He hadn't spoken much until now, but Novelight, his awe was shared by everyone else, Jusoa included. You really do know everything. Celestial Traces Revelation, Chinjitam/Ka Chungithums, Inus? A specialized technique used to uncover and reconstruct lingering traces in a space. It can function as a formation, a martial art, or even a spiritual method. All formations and martial techniques leave behind traces of energy when used. These traces, even when erased or faded over time, are faintly etched into the space. Especially powerful forces like demonic or blood energy leave particularly distinct marks. For now, due to Unwise's low cultivation level, he had to activate the technique by spreading his hyonjigi. But once his realm advanced further, even that would no longer be necessary. In any case, unlike everyone else who stood in awe, Unwise was far from pleased. "Do you know what this is, Branch Lord?" It was Wanyang who asked. She alone sensed Unwise's mood, and Unwise gave her an answer. "This is a formation." "A formation? It's called the Blood Demon Incarnation Array. Ever heard of it?" Everyone shook their heads, as expected. There was no way ordinary people would know the formation used by the Central Blood Sect to manufacture bloodmen. The Central Blood Sect has those called bloodmen. Do you know what sets them apart from ordinary people? Their blood energy, right, Jusoa offered. Unwise nodded. Correct, but blood energy is extremely unstable and dangerous. It's a force unsuitable for ordinary martial artists. Just looking at what happened when Unwise used blood energy not long ago, it had left him near death. It was only because it was him that he had survived using a cultivation technique augmented by blood energy. Anyone else would have had their body burst and died. That's how dangerous blood energy is. To handle it like normal internal force, one must either possess overwhelming talent or be extremely familiar with blood energy. But most martial artists aren't like that. Let me put it clearly. Within the Central Blood Sect, those who are bloodmen are respected regardless of rank. Only by wielding blood energy can one be called a true sect member. Modifying an ordinary martial artist's blood vessels to turn them into a vessel for blood energy, that's what the Blood Demon Incarnation Array is for. But something's off. Whether it's a formation or a martial art, at its core, everything is a composition. The Blood Demon Incarnation Array was also a composition of several formations. Setting aside the auxiliary ones, its core consisted of 5 key formations. The Spirit-Separating Array, which detaches the consciousness from the body. The Soul-Stabilizing Array, which anchors the separated mind. The Blood Accumulation Array, which gathers and condenses blood energy. The Blood Vessel Reformation Array, which modifies the bloodline to contain blood energy. The Unified Infusion Array, which injects the refined blood energy into the transformed body. But here, 2 are missing, the Spirit-Separating Array and the Soul-Stabilizing Array. And not just that. This is a modified version of the Blood Demon Incarnation Array. The fundamental framework was unmistakably that of the original array, but the infused energy was different. This was absolutely not a formation meant to inject blood energy. Tianlin was known for aiding the reconstruction of the 1,000-year demonic sect, and that sect, of course, dealt with demonic energy. So this was a formation designed to inject demonic energy. Then why didn't it protect the mind? Demonic energy was just as corrosive and destructive as blood energy. There were already plenty of users out there, so why go to all this trouble? That left only 2 possibilities. Either the subject was an expendable test subject who didn't require mental separation, or they never had a consciousness to begin with. He gazed in silence at the formation hanging in the air. It was too intricate to be some crude experiment. To modify a formation to this extent meant someone at the very end of the martial gods, 5 realms had intervened. From what Unwise could tell, it was nearly perfect. Wanyang, yes. How long has Tianlin been stationed in Chengsu village? 6 years. 6 years. There was no need to ask why that mattered. That was when Yangyong had swallowed up the Sialap mine, and Tianlin had played a central role in the operation before pulling back. It was likely their reward for that service had been this place. And now he was curious. Had they completed it? He closed his eyes for a moment, sorting through the fading memories of his past life. The martial world was vast. Rumors always found their way around somehow. After he left, the 1,000-year demonic sect was resurrected. The 10,000 mountains and everlasting snow mountain were on opposite ends of the world, so he had to look back further. There had been a rumor about a being that wielded demonic energy without a will of its own, something that followed commands and nothing else. Whether it was a vengeful spirit, a corpse puppet, or something else. Slowly, he opened his eyes. Roughly 22 years from now, there would be an incident where the beast palace of the southern barbarians was annihilated. The one who destroyed them had neither emotion nor ego. It moved solely for slaughter like a tool. And it had two notable traits. It didn't seem to breathe, and it wielded demonic energy. It vanished without a trace afterward, and people came to call it the heavenly fiend of the demonic path. Ch-Un-Wai clicked his tongue. Beside him, Ju-Soa's voice reached his ears. "You were right, Branch Lord. At this point, Tianlin should be groveling, don't you think?" But Un-Wai shook his head. "It's not enough." "What isn't?" "Evidence. This isn't enough." He immediately understood Ju-Soa's line of thought. Given their current conflict with Tianlin, threatening to go public with this could pressure them into submission. No matter how rampant demonic sects had become, being linked to the 1,000-year demonic sect would raise alarms among many, and that would turn into a major trust issue. Tianlin was a merchant group. Their sensitivity to trust and reputation would be extremely high. However, the current state of this site showed it had been thoroughly wiped clean. It had clearly been cleaned up not in a day, but over several days at the very least. And it was only thanks to Un-Wai's personal abilities that they'd uncovered any of it. If they were to publicize what happened here just to tarnish Tianlin's credibility, they would have to explain how they discovered it, explain the 1,000-year demonic sect, and even explain the regression. A pain. And more than that, a pointless one. As he'd said repeatedly, stretching the battlefield is a fool's move. Focusing solely on Tianlin was the smarter path. All he needed to know for now was that those working to rebuild the 1,000-year demonic sect had already prepared far more than expected. That was enough. All supplies in Qingsu village are to be transported to Yangyong. They'd already swept through the warehouse above on their way in. There were goods left over from the black market, and since this was officially a Tianlin branch built near the gold mine, it also held some of the mine's product. About 6 cartloads worth, and they were going to move all of it. All of that? All of it? Yes, sir. Ju-Soa scratched her head. Un-Wai asked her, still thinking about running away. She froze, then frowned as she looked at him. Seriously, what's with you? I told you I'm not like that. I told you I've got no intention of living in shame, remember? A faint smile crept onto Un-Wai's lips. He understood what she meant now. So you're finally starting to see that I'm being honest? I did, a little. Ju-Soa grinned and threw an arm around Wanyang's shoulder. He says a little. I was being dead serious. Wanyang wriggled out of her grip and snapped back. Don't act like we're close. Ju-Soa scratched her chin. When she turned her head, Han Murin was letting out a dry laugh, and Chen Peng was smiling brightly with his arms wide open. No one here was normal. Even after returning to the Yangyong branch, Un-Wai remained deep in thought, his expression grave. Just from the absence of any mental protection in the formation, he had been able to deduce a great deal. And that deduction, matched against his past experiences, had turned into a certainty. Demonic energy was truly dangerous. He hadn't been startled by the demonic blood heavenly gang incantation for nothing. Even when creating bloodmen, there were safeguards for separating and shielding the mind. Yet here, they were using something even more destructive without those measures. That could only mean that the destruction of the mind had already been preemptively done. So where did that put the power level of the heavenly fiend? There was no way it was just at the level of flame screen realm. To put this much effort into creating something at that level would go beyond inefficiency. It would be insanity. At the very least, it had to be heaven and earth spirit realm, with mythic realm at the bottom of that tier. What weighed most heavily on Un-Wai's mind, what made his expression so grim, was the timing. The formation's craftsmanship was nearly flawless, but if production of the heavenly fiend had already started at this point in time, then the one that would emerge in the distant future was likely just one of many. He rested his chin in his hand. He had experienced so much in his past life. As the Blood Heaven Middle Patriarch, he had swept across the Central Plains, and no matter where he went, people scrambled to offer him anything and everything. The quality of the information he received naturally rose with his status. Yet Unwai had never once learned that Tianlin was connected to the thousand-year demonic sect until now. There's a world of difference between a suspicion and a revelation. Yu Cheng, vice lord of the Central Blood Sect, just how deep did his schemes go? Was he truly capable of grasping this entire martial world in the palm of his hand? Seems the Heavenly Way seer wasn't being overly cautious after all. There were many questions, but that was fine. If one failed to recognize a threat for what it was, that would be the real problem. But now that he saw it clearly as a threat, all that remained was to find a solution. He paused to retrace the past. The time Unwai had left the Central Blood Sect and the time Yu Cheng left were different. Strictly speaking, Unwai left first. He had fought against the sect's pursuers, elders, offshoots, and the martial world at large. Everyone hunted him. And by the time he reached the everlasting Snow Palace, he heard the news that Yu Cheng had departed the sect to rebuild the thousand-year demonic sect. That was the day Unwai died. He had no idea what happened afterward, but chances were the true reign of the demonic path had begun. A faint laugh escaped him. Now Unwai's gaze rested on a go board. Someone had placed a stone, and so had he. Now, it was the opponent's move. 2 days had passed since they razed the Tianlin branch to the ground. In those 2 days, the goods they'd brought back were stored in the division warehouse, the usable weapons were distributed among the branch members, and all pills and cultivation resources were consumed. And as the saying goes, good things come in waves. In one corner of the training grounds, Chen Peng and Han Murin opened their eyes at the same moment while seated in lotus position. Energy surged around them like a storm. It could mean only one thing. Both had finally broken through into the flame screen realm, and that wasn't the end. The woman seated cross-legged beside Unwai also opened her eyes. Energy coiled around her as well, Wanyang. She had ascended to 5 Dragon Blooming Star. Unwai began congratulating the branch members, and the 3 newly advanced martial artists bowed in gratitude, overwhelmed. Watching this unfold, Jusoa found it impossible to conceal her astonishment. Is it really possible to grow this fast? Chen Peng and Han Murin had said they reached Root Heaven stage 2 years ago, so by timing, their progress now was right on track, even exemplary. But Wanyang was different. She had reached dual light manifestation just a month ago. And now she had already broken through to 5 Dragon Blooming Star. She wiped her face with one hand. What is most important to a martial artist? Some might say martial techniques, but that's not the first priority. The most important thing is experience. And experience isn't just what one goes through as a martial artist. It includes who you have around you. Jusoa's gaze turned toward Xiao Unwai, who stood behind them with his hands folded, smiling quietly. It was him. He was the one pushing their latent talents to the absolute limit. Now she understood why a teacher had been necessary. Unwai was undoubtedly imparting a cultivation method of ascension. She still didn't fully understand it, but a martial artist at 5 Dragon Blooming Star was teaching techniques comparable to those of heaven and earth and even martial god level. And the Spirit Ascension stage steward, Seong Yangho, was refining those teachings. They were unknowingly absorbing the very teachings Unwai had meant to transmit. And with Jusoa, who was also at the flame screen realm, helping to train them, they'd learned to discern what worked and what didn't, to feel the difference between levels of instruction. What more could she say? The results were right before her eyes. He's really a monster. Jusoa scratched her head and looked away. Wanyang was glaring at her. A smile crept across Jusoa's face. Up until now, she'd seen her as a cute little sister, but now, it felt like she might be overtaken. Time to start proper instruction. Wanyang, what? How about a sparring match? Sure. Let's spar. Wanyang answered without hesitation, and Jusoa was about to say something more when a man entered the branch. I am Munam, the chief arbitrator of the Three Valleys Trade Alliance. Ha 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 ha. Branch Lord, I trust you've been well. Behind I am Munam were 5 wagons being brought in. It was the 600 June of Shinsamwa he had promised. As she looked at him, Unwai gave a meaningful smile. And for some reason, that smile sent a chill down Jusoa's spine. She turned to Wanyang beside her and muttered, Don't mind it, let's go. Yes, let's go. Do you have something against me? Nope. Wanyang answered without even thinking, and Jusoa was left speechless. In the central hall of the division, Unwai was in private conversation with I am Munam. After steadying his breath, I am Munam offered a bright smile. This time, we were especially lucky. A whole 150 June of high-grade Shinsamwa. Ha ha ha. Unwai silently watched him as he chuckled. That gaze was strange, far too blatant. I Munam's smile quickly turned awkward, and eventually he scratched his head and dropped the expression. Why are you looking at me like that? Did I do something wrong? If we're talking wrongs, then yes, you did. And what might that be? Making me wait until you got to the point, that's your mistake. I Munam's lips twitched faintly. I had a feeling you weren't ordinary, but I didn't expect you to be this sharp. Did you deduce it just now, or had you already suspected it? Neither. Then what was it? From the very beginning. Pardon? I number NOVYLIGHT number thought it was strange from the very beginning. I don't believe I made a mistake. So how could you have known? Consciousness and subconsciousness are strictly distinct. That's the most basic principle of martial arts. No matter how unified the mind and body may seem, no matter how high the cultivation, be it even someone who's reached absolute oneness, the two can never fully become one. A martial artist of heavenly man realm playing mediator. That alone was odd, but the way you tried to hide your identity, it was almost cute. I Munam let out a soft laugh. There's a specialized great art I used. Even martial artists above my level couldn't perceive it. And yet you, a flame screen stage branch lord, saw through it. You're not even denying it. I'm acknowledging your brilliance, branch lord. In such a situation, there's no point in denying it, is there? Brilliance, huh? That's your judgment? You spoke of Go the first time we met. Then and now I've been nothing but sincerely impressed. Truly a mysterious existence, you are. I Munam straightened his posture. Very well. Your poise, your boldness, Hyun Sialan Nim, it's unforgettable. You can even read the board. I dare say there's no one in all of Yangyong who could match you in a game of Go. So let me ask, just how far are you seeing? Before that, let's settle on a proper title. Still smiling, I Munam responded. Then from this moment forward, I shall refer to you as young lord. Fine. Go on, how far ahead are you looking? Then let me ask you this, how far do you think I'm seeing? I Munam had been about to answer, but stopped himself cold. ... Incredible, I almost slipped there. Haven't made a verbal misstep like that in ages. I have a question, who laid out this game? That, I can't tell you. Then did you give your input? I did, but I didn't foresee all the results. Then how far did you expect it to go? You want to see my hand. Normally, I wouldn't bother. But this time, I'm a little curious. I Munam offered a slight grin. I'll tell you since I wish to build a cooperative relationship with you, young lord. He took a deep breath, then spoke quietly. I won't deny it. Tianlin's establishment of a branch in Chengsu village had nothing to do with the gold mine. Unwai chuckled. You're not saying it was for experiments, I see. You continue to astonish me. Fine, I won't hide it any longer. Yes, it was for experiments. Whether you uncovered it alone or used the power of Everlasting Snow Palace, that's not important. What matters is this. Everlasting Snow Palace's reach has now extended to the outer fringes of the Central Plains. Unwai gestured for him to continue. We placed our branch in Chengsu because we were certain Everlasting Snow Palace wouldn't extend that far. Is that so? Yes. Lord Xiao Yungchen, the sovereign of the palace, has no interest in expanding territory. The more enemies one gathers, the more there is to protect. Unwai remained silent. But the moment Everlasting Snow Palace absorbed Yangyong, the truth of what we were doing in our branch was bound to surface. Especially since Tianlin helped subjugate Sialap, which you had been managing. Naturally, we had no choice but to concede and apologize. So the choice of Shinsamwo was your apology? Yes, it was our peace offering. Of course, if you'd rather not accept it, we'll simply prepare a different form of compensation. Whatever it is, the more we want from each other, the more exhausting it becomes. Exactly. I can't recall the last time conversation flowed so well. I Munam smiled again. Let me ask again, how far ahead are you looking? To the end. With unwise words, the air seemed to freeze. It wasn't merely an answer, it was a declaration that he had seen through everything. I'm looking to the end as well. Do you think the end I see is the same as yours? I don't believe they differ. But if we acknowledge each other's domains and accept different methods, there's no reason for conflict. That's a valid point. So valid, in fact, it almost sounds completely wrong. Does it now? To sum it up, this was Tianlin's scheme. The moment Unwai seized control of Yangyong, Tianlin had made their move. Through the chief mediator of the Three Valleys Trade Alliance, they approached Everlasting Snow Palace. On the surface, it was a trade negotiation, but in truth, Tianlin had prepared a gift. Unwai had waited. Even 2 days after reducing the Tianlin branch to rubble, no one from Tianlin showed themselves. But the moment Munam appeared, everything clicked into place. Unwai asked, "What's your name?" Munam tilted his head. "I told you it's Munam. Not that one. I'm asking for your real name. Is it difficult to answer? Do you believe I am Munam is a false name? Did I guess wrong? No, you didn't. I am Munam gave a martial salute. Allow me to introduce myself again. I am Seong, the bright lord of Tianlin. It had been a long time since something had truly surprised him. Who exactly was the master of Tianlin? There were those referred to as the Rim Lord, but their true identity had remained unknown to him, even at the moment of his death. In truth, he'd never really tried to find out. Tianlin was led by 4 individuals, 2 men and 2 women, collectively known as the 4 sovereign lords. Each of them was, in a practical sense, the true master of Tianlin. Even as the Blood Heaven Middle Patriarch, he had only met 2 of them. After the Central Blood Sect had unified the Central Plains, Tianlin had disbanded. That was why he hadn't bothered digging deeper. But apparently, even among the 4 sovereign lords, there was one figure all of them trusted and followed. Seong, the name of the man now sitting right before him. It was a strange feeling. Seong, Western Dawn. It's a fine name. Now I find myself afraid. Afraid of what? Of everything you say, young lord. It all keeps aligning with the thoughts I've kept to myself, even though I keep telling myself it can't be true. I can't help but think, what if it is that thought is terrifying? It was simple. He could explain it in just a few words. What lies in the West? Ask 100 travelers and you'd likely get 100 different answers, but at least half would say Tianchen. Tianchen. And what once stood there? The 1,000-year demonic sect, sovereign of the primordial era. Which meant that Seong had likely been born, created, even for the sole purpose of restoring the 1,000-year demonic sect. Unwai gave a faint smile. Seong. Yes, how do you see me? If you are an enemy, one who must be eliminated. If an ally, one who must be kept close at all costs. And are we enemies? I've rarely met anyone with whom I could speak this freely. If you ask me, I think we could be friends. Do you need my answer? I do. Don't interfere in what I'm trying to do. Don't get in my way. If you do that, I'll be your friend. If you don't, one of us will have to die. I understand. And the gold mine near Bongni will be taking that. Seong let out a big, boisterous laugh. Ha ha ha. Wow. So you even intend to take that? Wasn't it already on the table? It was. We were saving it as a bargaining chip, but I see you've decided to take it anyway. If you are going to give it, you should give it properly. Don't you think? And you may reopen the black market in Chengsu village. Seong's eyes widened. You're merchants, aren't you? At least that's how I understand it. That's why you had that basement, right? I'm sure there's a hidden warehouse or 2 tucked away somewhere, probably massive ones. We'll only use it to store goods. As long as you properly distribute the profits to Yangyong, I see no reason not to approve. A faint smile curved Seong's lips. You're right. Whenever we operate a black market, we worry about possible raids, so we set up basements like that. If anything happens, people can retreat there. Of course, now that we've got such a reliable young lord, we don't expect any raids, but we'll keep using the space as storage. That's all, nothing else. Then we understand each other. Indeed, and will return 20% of all profits. There's no need for a written contract. Same here. Seong silently looked at him. Unwai returned the gaze. To speak frankly, Seong was dangerous. Not just because he was intelligent, but because he had courage and composure in equal measure. Someone like that as an enemy would be exhausting, but as an ally, he would be invaluable. It was obvious. Seong was likely thinking the same thing. Have you made up your mind? Yes, I have. You seem to have reached the same conclusion I have. I have. Still. Even if we're on the same side, there's something we're both overlooking. What would that be? A strange smile appeared at Unwai's lips. Your confidence and mine come from entirely different sources. Seong's brow twitched. It wasn't confusion. He was thinking about what Unwai meant. In a true friendship, there should be no deception. Can someone with a leash around their neck really be called a friend? Seong's eyes gleamed. I understand exactly what you mean. Do you really? Yes. Then I'm glad. He was sure Seong understood. There were few people in the world with that level of insight. Do you need someone to see you out? There's no need. Truly, this was an enlightening conversation. Likewise. With that, Seong departed. Alone now, Unwai silently rested his chin on his hand. It had been a while since he'd had to use his brain like this, and it wasn't so bad. Wow, young lord, you're amazing. He turned his head. It was Steward Seong. You're not just good with swords, you're great with words too. You mean me? You talked your way into a 20% cut of the black market and took the gold mine. Unwai gave Seong the steward a quiet look. Perhaps pricked by guilt, Seong flinched. Why are you looking at me like that? Do you really think it was a gain? Wasn't it? In terms of material wealth, yes. But underneath it, it's anything but. Unwai turned to gaze in the direction Seong Yangho had departed. I'm conflicted. About what? Whether I should annihilate Tianlin or not. Seong showed a crooked smile. You really are. Different, me? Yes, most would think to ally with them or bring them under their command, but the first thing you consider is annihilation. That's quite the imposing mindset. Unwai didn't know exactly how Seong saw him, but the world Unwai was looking at was certainly not the same one seen by ordinary people. The questions were, is this a threat? Can it be contained? If it can, what about now and what about later? If the answers crossed the line at any point, then removal was the right call. Not for profit, but for efficiency. Efficiency. What would Seong Yangho choose? And was the true Rim Lord of Tianlin really Yucheng, the Vice Lord of the Central Blood Sect? From what Unwai could see, Yucheng was not the Rim Lord. Though he hadn't tracked Yucheng's every movement during his time in the sect, of that one fact he was certain. Then how much authority did Seong Yangho actually hold? Tianlin was clearly linked to the thousand-year demonic sect, but were they acting under Yucheng's orders or independently? Several unanswered questions swirled in his head, but none that needed solving now. In time, the answers would reveal themselves. Then, what's that letter in your hand? Oh, it just arrived from the main palace. Seong passed him the letter. Inside, it read, what was promised has arrived, come to the palace. It was a letter from his father, and the only thing he had been promised was the 10,000-year flame pearls. A smile tugged at his lips. All the branch members were assembled, called by Unwai. Standing before them, he spoke. I'm going to the main palace, Wanyang. At his call, Wanyang raised her head. You're coming with me. The rest of you will remain and guard the branch. She glanced briefly at Jusoa, then gave a radiant smile and bowed with a martial salute. Then she naturally stepped to Unwai's side, and Jusoa gave a faint chuckle at the sight. The image of Wanyang, still bruised from the last spar, was just too amusing, though Wanyang herself seemed blissfully unaware. And as of today, the gold mine between Yangyong and Bongni is now mine. Everyone looked surprised, but one person in particular looked especially stunned. Jusoa. Tianlin gave it to you? They did. When did that happen? While your eyes were open, she blinked. She hadn't even heard Tianlin had visited, and now the mine was theirs. And Tianlin will be reopening the black market in Qingsu village. Just so you all know, and Unwai trailed off, pulling out a large sheet of paper from his robe. The reason I've gathered all of you today is because of this gold mine I just mentioned. There were now people he could entrust with real tasks. Seong, the steward of the Spirit Ascension stage, warriors of 5 banners form, and excluding Wanyang, 2 others at dual light manifestation. The mine may be in our hands now, but I have no intention of managing it personally. I'll be delegating. However, as you know, most of the sects in Yangyong have signed an oath. An oath pledging themselves to the everlasting snow palace, tying their fates to its rise or fall. That oath was both a leash and a proof of loyalty. That meant he couldn't show favoritism. I've N-O-V-Y-L Cyrillic letter 456G Cyrillic letter 4BB te. Continue reading. Been told the mine produces about 1,000 June of ore a month. After refinement, that results in around 10 June of pure gold. 1 June of pure gold equals 100 gold coins. 1 gold coin equals 10 silver taels, and 1 silver tael equals 100 copper coins. That's the base currency system. So, 10 June of pure gold translates to 1,000 gold coins, or 10,000 silver taels monthly. It wasn't an absurdly massive mine, but for something located on the outskirts of the Central Plains, it was significant. Naturally, the output could be increased. According to a survey by the Open Blade Pavilion's Jang Siok, the mine could produce up to 2,000 June of ore per month if pushed. That would mean 20,000 silver taels in revenue. I won't show favoritism, so I'll be issuing a public notice. A notice? It's all written here, but I'll explain it in advance. I'll be selecting sects to operate the mine. First, they must be able to supply their own mining manpower. Second, they must have the financial means to handle tools and labor. Third, they must pay a regular tribute to the Yangyong branch, 20% of the yield. A maximum of 4 sects will be chosen. Why say all this now? While I'm away, Steward Seong will act as the branch lord. All of you will follow his orders. Whether or not mining begins after choosing the sects, that will be his decision. From behind, Seong stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. Thank you for entrusting me with this great responsibility. I will do everything I can to live up to your expectations. Unwai stood from his seat. Then I'll leave it to you. And so, Unwai departed for the palace, with Wanyang at his side. The distance from Yangyong to the main palace was considerable. If traveling on foot, it would take about 4 days. That is, assuming they took their time and rested well along the way. If they pressed on without rest and took the shortcut, they could reach their destination within 2 days. Even when riding on horseback with minimal breaks, it would still take 2 days. 2 days. Unwai was traveling by carriage, and at the moment he was resting in a small valley between the main palace and Yangyong. Before him, warming herself by the campfire, was Wanyang. Unwai spoke. "Are you uncomfortable?" "About what?" "Ju Soa." At that name, Wanyang flinched. Unwai quietly watched her, then drew a jar of golden soothing ointment from his sleeve and began gently applying it near her eye. Wanyang froze from surprise and embarrassment, her face flushed red. She gathered her senses a moment later. "I can do it myself. No need, just sit still." If it had been anyone else, she might have insisted. But when it came to Unwai, Wanyang accepted his words like a divine mandate. As he continued spreading the ointment, Unwai spoke. "Do you remember why you must become stronger?" "Yes, for revenge." "Right, it's revenge. Not to compete with anyone, that's not what this is about." At his words, Wanyang lowered her head. The flickering firelight slipped through the strands of her long hair. "I told you to stay still. You really don't listen, do you?" She hurriedly lifted her head, startled, but all she saw was Unwai's face smiling gently at her. And he was quite close. "The path of training isn't about defeating others. It's about overcoming yourself." Unwai's voice was deep and disarmingly sweet. "Don't let Ju Soa's presence shake your heart. If it does, you'll only be shaking yourself. I'll keep that in mind." The wounds near Wanyang's eye weren't the only ones. There were cuts on her shoulder, thigh, and calf as well. The area around her eye was just bruised and lightly scraped, but her shoulder had a long sword gash, and the same went for her thigh and calf. Unwai began applying ointment again. At his gentle touch, Wanyang let him treat her without the slightest resistance. "The path you must walk is already set. On that path, Ju Soa is neither an enemy nor a rival. She's simply someone whose direction happened to align with yours for a while." "And what about you, Lord?" "Well, technically I'm a companion, but do you really want to define our relationship with something so meager?" She didn't hesitate. "No, then let's say you and I walk in the same direction toward the same end. Ju Soa just happens to be traveling the same path for a while." "Yeah, that sounds right." Wanyang smiled brightly. Unwai rolled up the leg of her trousers. Wanyang twitched in surprise. "Your talent is exceptional." Unwai's voice was quiet as he applied ointment to the long cut on her thigh, but to Wanyang it rang out like thunder. It was hard to tell whether the sound she heard was his voice or the pounding of her own heart. "Don't let that talent be stained by jealousy or envy. That's not a burden your blade should carry." "Understood." Having finished applying the ointment, Unwai placed the jar back in his satchel and took out something else. "It was a book. Take this." "What is it?" "I haven't yet refined the Namgung clan's internal art." Wanyang gave a small smile. "That's fine. You said you'd teach me once I reached the 5 banners form, remember?" "I did." "No need to worry, NOVYL Yoda GHT. Read the full story about that." "I'm not worried." And she truly wasn't. "No matter what path you walk, Lord, I'll remain by your side. Even if it's a road soaked in blood. I don't care." Unwai gave a quiet chuckle. "You have the right mindset, so aren't you going to open it?" "Can I open it now?" Unwai nodded, and Wanyang flipped the book open. The moment she read the first page, her eyes widened as she looked at Unwai. It's the Namgung clan's sword art and movement technique." Wanyang swallowed hard. "The Bluefeather sword art is composed of 3 forms. Skyfeather turns heaven, wings pierce frost, and twin swallows in flight. It's the Namgung clan's foundational sword art and also its core. Fast, agile swordplay designed to strike at openings. You must master it to carry on their true legacy." "Lord." "While Hanchial's martial art is excellent, it was designed for the male physique. You're a woman, there are undeniable physical differences." "I don't deny that." "Good. But learning the Skywolf killing star art wasn't in vain. Its essence lies in sharpness and explosive force. The early part of that book contains the original form of the Bluefeather sword art. The middle includes a version infused with the Skywolf killing star's principles. I haven't named it. Take some time and come up with something fitting." Wanyang's eyes shimmered gently. The final section describes the Namgung Phantom steps. Remember 3 key mysteries: Phantom becoming real, vanishing without trace, and step shift shadow sees. Appear as illusion but exist in truth. Leave no shadow. Take your opponent's position as if stealing their shadow. That's the essence of Namgung's footwork. Unwai had spent a great deal of time in his quarters, in the carriage, in his room, wherever he was. always with a brush in hand, always with blank books nearby. What had he done with them? He sketched out the martial arts engraved in memory, again and again. If something was lacking, he refined it. If it was still insufficient, he filled in the gaps. As for the Namgung techniques, he'd encountered them often in his previous life. He knew them inside and out, especially the Namgung Phantom Steps and Bluefeather Sword art, which he had obtained himself in a hidden realm. It would have been strange not to remember them. You've been thinking of me all this time. Of course, Unwise smiled softly. You're mine. Yes, I belong to you, Lord. With that, she clutched the book to her chest. As though it were a treasure she could never lose, Unwise laid back and stretched out. I'm going to sleep. No need to keep watch, read a little, then rest. Okay. Wanyang gazed quietly at Unwise, whose eyes were already closed, then asked in a small voice, Lord, may I ask you something? Is it urgent? Yes, it's very urgent. He couldn't help but open his eyes. Speak. May I call you my liege? Unwise quietly looked at Wanyang for a moment, then gave a small smile. Now that I think of it, this is the first time. Pardon, since my return, not a single person has called me their lord. You'll be the first. Wanyang's face lit up. Then from now on, address me that way. As she nodded, Unwise issued his first command. I'm going to sleep, see that I'm not disturbed. Yes, my liege. He didn't make it to his dream. With his eyes still closed, Unwise furrowed his brow and opened them. A guest had arrived. He rose to his feet. Wanyang closed the book and stood up as well. Unwise quietly turned his gaze toward the brush, shrouded in darkness across the way. He spoke in a soft voice. Are you lost? A man stepped out from the foliage and answered. Do I look it? Yes, it's common for newcomers to lose their way in these snowy mountains. The man who emerged was a middle-aged figure with cropped hair, draped in a light traveling cloak. The moment Unwise saw his face, a faint scoff escaped him. A familiar face. Staring at him, Unwise continued calmly. Given the weather, especially for someone coming from a hot region like the Great Desert, losing one's way shouldn't be shameful. Senior, so you know who I am. Yes, you're the gate master of the soul-slaying sect, are you not? He clasped his fists in greeting. Sial Unwise of Everlasting Snow Palace greets Senior Yun Yunsing, the soul-destroying sword lord. I see. But I must say I'm curious, have we met before? No, we haven't, and yet you recognized me immediately. You're far too renowned, Senior. Yun Yunsing, the soul-destroying sword lord, who was he? A concise answer would suffice. He was the sovereign of the Great Desert, a top-tier master among top-tier masters, known to have reached the realm of peach blossom reversal. Then the rumors are all wrong. Is that so? They say you're a feeble puppet, a fool who doesn't even understand the weapon he holds. But you're more than that. Thank you for the compliment. Once again, Yun Yunsing gazed silently at Unwise. He looked like he had something to say, so Unwise simply waited. Soon the man spoke. I just returned from delivering the 10,000-year flame pearls to the palace lord. Then I take it you got what you wanted. I did, and I received 10,000 gold taels along with them. He smiled as he said it. As you know, the value of an item isn't set by the buyer. It's set by the seller. Exactly. You've come a long way. If you need more travel funds, just say the word. Yun Yunsing burst into laughter. To be honest, the palace lord told me that you're the one who brought the heavenly soul annihilation art to their attention. I won't deny it. And she told me to give you the art, along with 10,000 gold taels. That's also correct. Originally, Yun Yunsing had asked for 100,000 taels for the flame pearls. That was an impossible price for most martial factions, but not for powers like Everlasting Snow Palace, or even a nation. Especially in a resource-scarce region like the Great Desert, gold could accomplish a great deal. You could import water, stockpile food, feed tens of thousands of people. He didn't receive the full 100,000, but even 10,000 was more than enough. Truly. I didn't believe it, but now that I see you in person, I understand. You really are dangerous. Unwise gave a faint smile. You have a rather violent way of offering praise. Well, this is the martial world, isn't it? True, and in the martial world I'll take that violence as courtesy. You're as sly as a serpent. I have high hopes for your future. Unexpectedly, Yun Yunsing didn't ask. How did Unwise know the heavenly soul annihilation art? Aren't you curious? About what? Why I haven't asked how you came to know the heavenly soul annihilation art. I suppose I'm a little curious. I made a promise. With the palace lord. She told me not to ask, so I won't. As if the absurdity was only dawning on him now, Yun Yunsing let out a bitter chuckle. She said I'd understand once I met you. That woman really had a monster hidden away. Unwise said nothing in response. Yun Yunsing, holding his hat in his right hand, placed it back on his head and said quietly, "The heavenly soul annihilation art, lost since the primordial era, was the final secret art of the soul-slaying sect. A long-cherished wish of ours.